Chapter 608. It's true. And Almighty Chin. The Big Spade followed Almighty Chin today, and he seemed very obedient. Was it an illusion? Absolutely not. In order to listen to their conversation, I inadvertently got a tomato scrambled egg from the line over there. My Big Spade kept asking the Almighty what he wanted to eat. Damn. I want to get a tomato scrambled egg too. That day, the line at the tomato scrambled egg window was especially spectacular. They all wanted to get closer to the youngster standing behind Shinamo. The canteen lady thought it was another celebrity who came to their school to film a reality show, like returning to school or something. My Big Spade is so obedient. I feel like I'm just short of putting my chin on the Almighty's shoulder and acting like a spoiled child. Listening to the noise around her, Student Jill realized that she was indeed a little close to the Almighty. However, in order to eliminate the conflict, she had to keep up with the Almighty's pace. But the Almighty didn't seem to be very happy. The youngster thought for a moment, stopped, took out her phone, and very seriously typed a few words on the official Weibo. My good brother is angry. How do I pacify him? I have to believe in the power of the fans. There must be a good way. Honestly speaking, not many of the girls were really getting their food. They all let the male students go in front, and their eyes swept over the youngster who was looking down at her phone. What's my Big Spade doing? Not getting his food? Not asking what Almighty Chin ate? Continue sprinkling sugar. It's so annoying to suddenly stop like this. I can't hear anything. Wait, my Big Spade didn't stop. Look at the official Weibo. When the girls in the canteen realized what was going on and looked at their phones, there were already a lot of comments under that message. Tell me, who is my good brother? It's probably Almighty Chin. As a student of a university, I swear on my honor that it's definitely him. Almighty Chin is walking in front, and my Big Spade is following behind. The two of them are getting food. My Big Spade must have done something wrong to make Almighty Chin angry. He's acting like he's coaxing his boyfriend. Big Spade, listen to your sister. Hold your tongue and give the Almighty a kiss. That's right, bring out your aggressiveness and kiss him. The aggressive Gio had already gotten her food and was sitting on a chair in the cafeteria. Since she had to look at her phone, she coolly held her chopsticks in her mouth. However, these messages, how were they meant to coax a brother? Little Spade, try this. It's braised pork ribs. Lin Feng carried a huge pile of things and sat opposite the youngster. On his left was Yun Hu. Hey, don't you think the surrounding girls are more excited than before? Moreover, all of them were pressing on their phones. Usually, they would be taking pictures at this time. Why weren't they taking pictures today? That's weird. Am I not handsome enough today? Don't worry, you're very handsome. Because they're replying to my question on my official Weibo, they don't have time to take pictures. Classmate Gio replied in her heart, her eyes drifting a little. Chin Mo sat there with an indifferent expression. He glanced at the youngster, who was also tapping on his phone. Then he scanned the surroundings. He glanced sideways and tapped on the phone screen on the dining table. His official Weibo account had just been automatically logged in. Chapter 609. Chin Mo's fingers paused. He hadn't expected the youngster to post such a post. It seemed like a certain someone didn't completely disregard him. But Chin Mo lifted his lids and glanced at the fluffy head beside him. He dialed his phone to the side without a change in expression. He wasn't going to be a good brother. Why do I feel like there are more and more people watching us? Lin Feng dipped into the rice in his hands while giving Yun Hu a look. Hurry up and eat before leaving. Yun Hu replied faintly. Give me a piece of pork ribs. Here. Lin Feng wanted to place the pork ribs on Yun Hu's plate. What he didn't expect was that as soon as he raised his chopsticks, the other person leaned over and bit down on the ribs on his chopsticks. Lin Feng looked at the sharp face in front of him. Wasn't it too close? What's wrong? Yun Hu arched a brow. Lin Feng felt that he was making a fuss. They grew up wearing the same pair of pants. How could they be close? Nothing. He continued eating and didn't forget to steal the braised pork from Yun Hu's plate. He only had eyes for food and didn't notice that their interaction was more intimate than a couple. This was the effect Yun-Hu wanted. He lifted the corner of his lips. It was full of tricks. Student Jio didn't see this scene. She was still focused on waiting for her reply. But regardless of whether she scrolled forward or backward, she just grabbed onto the Almighty and kissed him. How was she going to tell her little cuties that she had already kissed the Almighty? Even though the Almighty was the one who initiated it, every time he kissed her, the Almighty's gaze seemed to want to kill her. In the end, he probably didn't throw her into the rubbish bin because she was his little brother. It seemed like she could only think of a solution when they were playing games. As for the youngster's behavior of burying her head in food after putting down her phone, the surrounding girls expressed that even though she was cute, she didn't kiss the Almighty. She didn't seem sincere in coaxing him. Student Joe saw it and replied, "I'll coax him when there's no one else. I'm shy in front of so many people." Of course, Chin Mo saw the reply as well. He arched a brow. She would be shy in front of so many people, right? Then he would wait until there was no one around and see how this guy would coax him. As soon as he put down the phone, the screen lit up and vibrated. At a table, four people looked in that direction. The caller ID was from Director Huang. That police chief? What was he looking for the captain for? This was Lin Feng's first reaction. Yun-Hu was different from him. He had already vaguely known some things, but he continued to eat in silence. "Hey!" Chin Mo stood up, one hand holding onto his phone, the other shoved into his pocket as he strolled into a corner. Chapter 610. Chin Mo didn't speak at the start. Until Director Huang couldn't wait any longer. He spoke, "I suspect someone is guiding Li Mengran to commit suicide." "What? Suicide?" Director Huang bolted upright. "What does that mean? Isn't it a sexual assault case? Why is it suicide?" Chin Mo tilted his handsome face. "Have you seen the contents of the forum?" Director Huang frowned. "Speaking of which, it isn't easy to enter the forum, it requires an invitation code. If you hadn't gotten Fatty's help, it would have taken some time." Chin Mo lowered his gaze. "I'm asking about the content." "The content is simple." Director Huang paused. "It's a normal topic, but it makes me uncomfortable." Chin Mo's voice was calm. "According to Li Mengran's description, everyone there is complaining about their pain and dissatisfaction. A psychological research conducted by Yale University found that bad emotions are like a cold. They can spread rapidly through the telepathy between people. Once a person comes here, they won't be healed. Instead, they will go to extremes. Psychological guidance can easily make people lose faith in the world. The maiden sacrifice has two meanings. One is Li Mengran's ID and the other is a prediction of suicide. But due to certain reasons, Li Mengran gave up on the idea of suicide and chose to resist." "What was the reason?" Director Huang stilled. He had never expected the situation to be so complicated. Chin Mo's gaze deepened. "For example, a sudden confession." Director Huang paused for a few seconds. "Are you serious?" Chin Mo remained silent. Director Huang started to panic. "Hurry up and get the person who confessed to her to coax her. What if she takes it too hard?" Chin Mo tightened his grip, his voice sinking. "She's fine now, what's the point of coaxing her?" Inexplicably, the phone in Director Huang's hand turned cold. It must be his imagination. "All right, as long as she's fine." Director Huang didn't have high expectations. To him, it was a good thing that no lives were lost. "Should we follow the clues and continue searching for Z?" "All right, speaking of Z, I have some good news. In recent years, our key case investigation unit has been cooperating with the Investigation Bureau. The information that we couldn't find back then has been verified. In Z's first case, the girl who passed away that you locked onto did have a very good friend. However, that person didn't really appear in school at that time and was quite a loner. Ever since that incident, she disappeared and never appeared again. There were very few clues left behind, not even a photo. It fits your deductions of Z at that time. Unfortunately, it's a little too late to find out. However, I already have her real name here." Chin Mo wasn't paying attention. Z's name wasn't important to him. Because no matter what the other party's name was, it was just a code name. But just as he was about to hang up, Director Huang's voice came over clearly. Her name is Bo Jio, Bo as in fickle and Jio as in 90. Jio? Also called Jio? Qin Mo's gaze paused, and he looked towards the youngster instinctively. Chapter 6:11. But at this moment, classmate Jio didn't reply to the message, because she received an email on her phone. That email had been mentioned a long time ago. Besides Hoshino, no one else would know. The content of the email was very concise. There was only one short sentence. The police have already found your information when you were in school. They should know your real name by now. Be careful. The last sentence was what Hoshino wanted to tell Z the most. Until now, Z hadn't told him where she was. It was probably because the time wasn't right. But Hoshino had already sensed that something was amiss. Why would the police suddenly start investigating Z's whereabouts? And this time, it was so aggressive that they couldn't guard against it. It wasn't like before. He was worried that something would happen to that person. Vice Captain. A youngster at the side nudged Hoshino's arm. The host is asking you who were you texting with? You were so engrossed. Hoshino laughed. His professional uniform made him look like a Star Trek commander. If I say it's someone I have a crush on, will I lose fans? Someone you like? It wasn't just the host, even the youngster's eyes widened. What kind of joke was that? Besides sleeping, Vice Captain was a handsome otaku who only knew how to play games and stretch. How could he have a crush on someone? Almighty Hoshino, you sure know how to joke. The host thought he was joking. After all, how could such a man have a crush on someone? The moment he asked, the other party would agree. All right, in case Almighty Hoshino doesn't answer the question properly, let's ask about esports. The host passed the microphone over. Our national competition has started. The champions of the 12 countries will be competing. Almighty Hoshino, which team from our country left the deepest impression on you? Hoshino didn't need to answer such a question. The youngster beside her laughed. Babe, we have only competed with Xiangnan. We haven't interacted with the other teams yet. Let's wait for the next time before commenting. The host agreed with him. In terms of esports, China had always been at the middle level. But the Japanese were the cream of the crop. Even Xiangnan was average in front of them, let alone the other teams in the country. The MC didn't mean to belittle any team. On the contrary, she was a fan of Supreme Alliance for many years. When she heard his reply, she even wanted to say that there was a team that could have defeated the Japanese team. It was just that Almighty Qin's whereabouts were unknown at that time, and when he returned, he was injured. She still remembered the appearance of that person at his peak. He took on 5 people by himself, and even after the team was wiped out, he could still return to the city with low health. He was as fierce as the wind. But now, she was worried that Almighty Qin's hand hadn't fully recovered. Otherwise, Almighty Qin wouldn't have been using support attacks all this time. The second hand moved bit by bit. At the same time, in a university's cafeteria, after the youngster finished reading the email, he knew very well that the police had found out his real name because the Almighty was behind all this. In other words, it was very likely that the Almighty had already obtained all of her information. That was right. Bojio. This was the real her. She was born in the darkness. It was time to use her real name again. The youth raised his head, his eyes dark to the extreme. Because that was the only way she could be complete. It was neither completely black nor completely white. 0 with the name of Z. Chapter 6:12. Not far away, Qin Mo hadn't hung up the phone. Director Huang noticed his pause. Why aren't you saying anything? Did you discover something? Qin Mo's eyes were still fixed on the youngster, his gaze as deep as the ocean, so deep that one couldn't see the end of it. His voice was calm. But there is one thing, Z might not be the one coming this time. It's not Z. Director Huang was shocked. That can't be, with such a style and that message, it's impossible. The crime style can be imitated and the message can be faked. You mean someone is impersonating Hacker Z? Director Huang's head hurt. Why was the case so complicated? What's the basis? Qin Mo's thin lips quivered. There's no basis. He was someone who had always been particular about evidence, but this time he had come to a conclusion without any basis. What exactly was the reason for this? Director Huang asked in confusion. Qin Mo's side profile didn't change, as though he was stating a fact. Because the Real Z wouldn't lead a victim to suicide. Director Huang paused before replying, I know you used to pity Z and wanted her to be your partner, but no matter how pitiful she is still a criminal and no one can predict her next move. Even you have said that some people aren't originally devils, but after coming into contact with the dark side for a long time, they will turn into a devil. The last time you fought was 3 years ago. You were still in your 3rd year of high school then. In 3 years, you have changed and perhaps she has changed as well. Qin Mo remained silent. Director Huang sighed. Since you are so insistent, we will investigate further. We really need you this time. That kind of forum can't exist anymore. It wasn't scary to see the real culprit, it was to use a forum and words to induce someone to commit suicide. Moreover, he had seen some posts on the forum. Some of them had even turned violent, threatening to let everyone around them die, and so on. Hence, regardless of who the culprit was, they had to find the culprit as soon as possible. As for whether this person is impersonating Z, it isn't important to this case. That was Director Huang's opinion. Qin Mo paused, his voice faint. No, it's very important. If the other party is really an imposter, we have to investigate why he impersonated Z. Every action of the criminal is related to the criminal himself. This is common knowledge in criminal psychology. Director Huang. Was he saying he had no common sense? After saying this name, Qin Mo paused slightly before continuing, How old were you then? Is this also common knowledge in criminal psychology? Director Huang flipped through the documents. Same age as you, 18 years old, Gemini, born on June 6th. Other than these, there's nothing else. 3 years ago, he was 18. The young man in front of him was only 17 years old. Their ages didn't match. His family background matched as well. Even though Z was Chinese, he lived in the 5th Avenue. The youth was in Jiang City. But Qin Mo couldn't explain that feeling. When this man first appeared, he felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 613. That was why he sent Fatty to track them. But it turned out that this was not the case. Qin Mo hung up the phone, stuffing one hand into his pocket as he looked in the youngster's direction. No one knew what he was thinking. But after about 3 seconds, he picked up his phone again and dialed a number. Help me investigate someone. Okay, Captain, who do you think we should investigate? Fatty loved to do this kind of thing. Is it related to the police? Qin Mo's gaze deepened. No, it has nothing to do with the police. Who? Fatty thought there was something wrong with his ears. He dropped his fork that was eating instant noodles. Qin Mo's voice didn't change. You didn't hear wrongly. Investigate Gio from the beginning. Inform me of all the details. No, Captain, what's going on? Why are you investigating Little Spade all of a sudden? Fatty didn't understand. Qin Mo only gave him 2 words. Go and investigate. Fatty knew very well that he couldn't afford to offend the captain at this time, and he also knew that if this matter wasn't even reported to the police, it must be a very important matter. What exactly did Little Spade do? Why did the captain suddenly become like this? Fatty did not dare to ask again. He could feel that it was best not to ask this question. At this time, the youngster had decided to use her identity as Z Bogio, her real name. He made this decision because the time had come. From the beginning, Gio knew that once she used her hacking skills again, the Almighty would suspect her one day. Now the day had come. As expected. But she didn't want to break the current relationship between her and the Almighty. Therefore, the only thing left to do was to stall for as long as possible. At the very least, she had to wait until she won the National League before she admitted her identity. After recovering her identity, she was clearer about her position. The Almighty wouldn't notice her immediately. This was because not many people would think of reincarnation. With that in mind, Bojo smiled. It was a handsome smile. This time, who would win, her or the Almighty? No matter who won. She believed that she would never forget that back view that was as straight as a pine tree. Even if they weren't in the same trench, even if they were enemies. She was happy because her opponent was him, who had perfect values, not anyone else. At that time, even Z himself didn't know. In her world, what did it mean for an opponent to become so important? With Qin Mo's skills, no one would know what call he had received. When he walked back, he had already put his phone away. He had one hand in his pocket, which only made people feel his natural handsomeness. The girls couldn't help tagging their big spade. Seeing almighty Qin like this, don't you want to kiss him? Shut up, my big spade is shy and kissing in private. Other than kissing, we can do something else. After all, I, big spade, boast of being the attacker. Let me say this weakly. Usually, only the ones who are on the receiving end will emphasize that they are on the offensive over and over again. In short, Lil Shou is trying to coax her boyfriend. Even throwing a tantrum seems like they're showing off their affection. I need some peace and quiet. The atmosphere in the cafeteria was closely related to the official Weibo. After Lin Feng finished his meal, he couldn't take it anymore. He pulled Yunhu out. Chapter 614. The four of them left the cafeteria and went to the internet cafe near the school. It was rare to see such a good-looking combination. Even the cashier couldn't help but look up at the four of them. They were both men, but why was he so ugly to look at? Fortunately, the cashier didn't play hero, so he didn't know them. Otherwise, they would have been surrounded the moment they entered. Due to the development of a mobile version of Hero, more and more people were familiar with this game. From office workers to primary school students, they really formed a group to hate him together. As a student, especially a computer science student, he had an extraordinary passion for esports. Hence, there were many Supreme Alliance fans in the internet cafes near a university. Under normal circumstances, Bo Jio would either be biting on a lollipop or wearing her black mask. This child was not afraid of being recognized. Qin Mo's face was too recognizable. Thus, the four of them found an inconspicuous spot and sat in a row. Such a scene could only be felt by those who had been to an internet cafe. How should I put it? Because it was a team battle, there was an indescribable coolness to it. Holy *T, come and look. What is it? The video of Almighty Qin returning to the city with low HP after a 1v5. That's right. Every large internet cafe would broadcast the esports competitions on the big screens on the weekends. Qin Mo's match was the most popular. If you want to know why it is popular, just play a game. In the 1v5, when he had killed 3 of the opponents, he had been at critical health. He had thought that the Almighty would be killed in the next second. However, he actually entered the bushes, shifted his position, turned around, and used a big move to kill the one in front. Then he recovered his health, shifted again, and continued to kill. Quintuple kill, team wipe. That kind of operation, even if it was replayed, would still make people burn with excitement. Handsome. The one and only male idol doesn't need to explain. I just want to know how Almighty Qin did it. I also play the hero that Almighty Qin plays. Don't you think that the hero you play is very ordinary? Any champion in Almighty Qin's hands is like a cheat code. He can move his position accurately. You have to get used to it. At this moment, these people didn't know that Qin Mo was here. If they knew, they would go crazy. Bo Jio was watching the video as well. When she reached the last point, she frowned. It isn't an issue of positioning. Little Spade is smart. As Lin Feng moved the mouse, he didn't forget to speak into his earpiece. Ordinary people can't tell. At that time, I also thought it was a problem with the positioning. Later, I heard from the captain that he had calculated everything beforehand. He used geometric formulas to calculate. What a crazy genius. Bo Jio turned towards the Almighty, who was seated beside her. That person was wearing headphones and had a cigarette between his lips. Even when he was playing games, he looked very abstinent. When he saw the young man, he looked at him again. Qin Mo removed his headphones and looked into the youngster's eyes. Sitting together, the two of them were much closer than usual. Everyone knew about the chairs in internet cafes. Basically, their arms were touching each other. Moreover, Chinemo was in this position. Their auras seemed to be able to blend together. They were so close that it was a little ambiguous. However, this was not the main point. The key was the Almighty's words. Chapter 6:15. There was a loud bang. Bojio only had one thought in her mind: she deserved it. But right now, she had clearly underestimated the Almighty's scheming. Since you're so aggressive, you shouldn't still be shy, right? Chin-mo arched a brow. Bojio. Was this the price of being caught posting on Weibo? Fortunately, at this moment, Lin Feng shouted, "Captain, the middle lane." Chin-mo frowned, putting his earpiece back. His left hand gripped the mouse, and he turned invisible, gliding across the field, heading straight for the middle lane. He returned with a big move, crossing the tower. The opponent hadn't expected him to appear so suddenly. It was too late to kill him. On the other hand, one of his teammates had wanted to use the opportunity to chase the Almighty to the bottom of the tower, but he was instantly killed by the Almighty. Unexpectedly, the Almighty jumped and bounced back. 3 skills were critical hits. That person was instantly stunned. Lin Feng went forward, crouching with a big move. Double kill. Awesome. Captain, continue. It was said that Hero was a game that emphasized teamwork. What would it feel like to have a godlike assassin? It felt like killing all the way to the end. Pushing down the tower wasn't a big deal, they wanted to kill. Bojio was taken aback by the Almighty's playing style. It was one thing to watch him play on the screen, but it was another to watch him move the mouse with her own eyes. Anyway, the Almighty could take on an entire team. Hence, Bojio didn't leave the city. She held her chin mischievously, glancing sideways at Chinemo while asking, "Brother Emo, have you never lost before?" Not only has he never lost, but he has also never died in the game. Lin Feng replied to the youngster, "Little Spade, why aren't you moving?" Bojio smiled faintly. "If I move, it won't be fair to the opponent. You and the Almighty can have a 2v5. The moment she finished her sentence, the person on the other side who was killed seemed to be very unconvinced. He shouted the Almighty's alt account's name, "Assassin on the other side, just you wait." Just you wait? Bojio thought to herself. He had to die. Chinemo didn't say anything, but there was one thing. He stopped right in front of the tower and did not move an inch. The other party had sent 3 people at once. The leader snorted. Since he wants to die so badly, let's fulfill his wish. But who knew that just as he finished speaking, the person in front of him disappeared in a flash. F***C invisibility? Before he could finish his sentence, a silver light pierced through his back and went straight for his vitals. This was the first move, the second was a deceleration critical strike, and the third was a retreat. All that could be heard was the sound of a KO. If one were to describe the Almighty's technique in one sentence, it would be that he could kill a person within 10 steps without leaving a trace. Most importantly, he only killed that person and didn't touch anyone else. From then on, he only caught that person. After killing the opponent 3 times, that person was so scared that he didn't even dare to leave the city. This was destined to be a loss. The other party's city-protecting crystal was gone. However, some people were just stubborn. "Hi, you're awesome, you're awesome. If you have the ability, come to the city and kill me." As soon as he said this, Bojio saw the Almighty move. First, he went invisible. Then he sprinted. Without anyone noticing, he used a big move, forcefully killing someone under the crystal. The other party's teammates would definitely surround the Almighty. Chapter 6:16. On the screen, there were indeed 2 people sprinting out of the city, heading towards Chinemo. But Bojio hadn't expected someone to be so fast when he returned. Just as she leaned over, intending to kiss the Almighty's cheek and create trouble for him, Chinemo had finished dealing with the 2 people opposite him. Chinemo had finished dealing with the 2 people on the other side. He sensed the youngster's approach and came over. In that instant, the 2 of them froze in place. Because of his coincidental action, Bojio leaned over and kissed his lips instead of his face. Instead, she kissed his beautiful lips. Both of them were really close. They sat on the chairs in the internet cafe, but their lips were stuck together. Bo Jio's dark pupils trembled. The touch on his lips was icy cold, with a familiar minty tobacco fragrance, soft and penetrating into his heart. Bo Jio could see the smile on the Almighty's lips, the strands of his black hair falling down. His thick eyelashes were bewitching, his slightly curled lashes tinged with a faint silver ash. His fair and tall nose bridge was like ancient jade and ivory. His lips were pale and pure, glistening like pearls. Coupled with his face full of lust, it was a captivating sight. Bo Jio couldn't describe her feelings, except for the clear sound of her heartbeat. It was the unique sound of the internet cafe's keyboard. But at this moment, even the sound of the keyboard seemed to have been hidden. The surroundings seemed to have quietened down. Lin Feng, who was sitting beside her, turned when he saw the 3 kills on the screen. He was just about to shout, "Cool!" when he saw the scene he had never expected to see. Little Spade was extremely close to his captain. It wasn't just close, their mouths were touching. Looking at the scene in front of him, Lin Feng's mouth was wide open into the shape of an O. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess. How could he have the time to care about his own game? He just sat there dumbfounded. He even forgot to move his mouse. He was petrified. And from the looks of it, Little Spade was the one who initiated it? What did Little Spade mean? Was he so upset that his captain had a girlfriend that he couldn't take it anymore and decided to make a move on him? Honestly, as someone who was often heartbroken, Lin Feng could understand the youngster's actions. But Little Spade, did it ever cross your mind that Captain would destroy you if you treated him this way? In Hero, the other party wasn't aware of the situation. When they saw the expert who had killed the 3 of them suddenly standing there motionlessly, they thought it was a trap. Hence, he had shot an arrow from afar. When there wasn't any reaction, he had hurried over and started shooting randomly at Qin Mo. Finally, he had killed him. The sound of death came from the game, causing Bo Jio to retract herself. Qin Mo continued to stare at the youngster. He didn't kill her like Lin Feng had said. Instead, his gaze deepened, glinting with an unfathomable glint. His brows were arched as though he was waiting for her to give him. This was the first time since the game. Bo Jio mows to kill him. Chapter 617. After that, both of them didn't move. In the noisy internet cafe, they sat shoulder to shoulder, looking at each other in the corner. Just as Qin Mo had said, no one saw what the youngster did. Everyone was playing, clamoring for the top lane or the jungles. Only Lin Feng saw it. But that was why Lin Feng was even more shocked. Captain was actually kissed by Little Spade. He was kissed just like that. He wasn't angry. The music in the game was still blaring. The opponent was attacking. 5 of them were playing, but 4 of them didn't leave the city. Yun, who reached out to tap his earpiece, his eyes still on the screen. "Feng, go to the top lane to catch them." No one replied. Yun, who glanced over, asking Lin Feng, "Why aren't you moving?" Lin Feng grabbed Yun, who and gestured for him to keep quiet. He lowered his voice and said, "Let me have some peace first." "Who, do you know what I saw just now?" Little Spade leaned over and forcefully kissed Captain. If Lin Feng had said this in the past, Yun, who would definitely have believed him. But now, Yun, who didn't think so. Because the captain he knew wouldn't allow anyone to forcefully kiss him if he wasn't willing. Besides, Yun, who was still suspecting that the girl in the convenience store was Little Spade. And recently, Captain's attitude towards Little Spade. He had never seen Captain being so indulgent towards anyone. Even though Captain had said that Little Spade was his younger brother, no one had ever treated his younger brother in such a manner. Hence, when Lin Feng started to speak again, Yun, who pressed him down and turned to look over. At this moment, Qin Mo's gaze hadn't left the youngster. Bo Jio had a serious expression, looking a little annoyed. "Brother Mo, believe me, this is just a coincidence." Qin Mo glanced at the youngster, placing down the mouse in his right hand. He asked slowly, "The confession is a coincidence, saying that he wants to keep me is a coincidence, wanting to sleep with me is a coincidence, and now he's leaning over to kiss me is also a coincidence. Is this the explanation of a wall-jumping scholar?" Lin Feng gave the youngster a stern look. "Little Spade, stop being so stubborn. Is it that hard to admit that you like Captain?" It's up to you whether you admit it or not. Everything you've done is enough to prove that you love our captain to the extreme. You even dared to force a kiss in an internet cafe. I admire you. Bo Jiao felt that she wouldn't be able to clear her name after the Almighty's words. She could predict the future just by looking at Lin Feng's eyes. Did this matter have to be so depressing? The Almighty in the game was indeed dead. But the price she had to pay was a little too high. Looking at the youngster's slightly depressed face, Qin Mo knew that it was just like what the youngster had said, it was just an accident. But the more he thought about it, the deeper Qin Mo's gaze became. The last thing he wanted to see was the young man wanting to explain himself and draw a line with him after kissing him. Chapter 6:18. What? Bo Jiao arched a brow. What else could she do? The kiss was a kiss. She couldn't let the Almighty kiss her again. Qin Mo lowered his breath. At that distance, his breath brushed past her lips. You have to take responsibility for kissing me, do you understand? Responsibility? The Almighty had kissed her twice, but she hadn't asked him to take responsibility. She had only kissed him once and he was asking her to take responsibility? Bo Jiao arched a brow, breaking into a smile. If Brother Mo doesn't mind, I can bring him home. When Lin Feng heard this, he covered his face. Little Spade, you still haven't changed your evil intentions towards Captain. Bo Jiao admitted her intentions since the Almighty wouldn't agree to it. But who knew that the Almighty's thoughts would always be like the weather forecast, never accurate? Sure. Two calm words, his voice filled with a familiar magnetism. It wasn't just Lin Feng, even Yun who turned over when he heard the reply. The player was still hooting. The opposing team must be stunned, this is our true ability, we were just letting you guys have your way. It was probably because his voice had affected the atmosphere at the moment. Qin Mo glanced over, grabbing onto the mouse once more. With a beautiful maneuver, he went invisible before launching a sudden attack, heading straight for the opponent's crystal. Again? That's how you died the last time, have you forgotten? It was obvious that the opposing team wanted to use the same method to kill the Almighty. But they hadn't expected it. This time, the other party's reaction was completely different from the last time. Not only did he kill a single person, he immediately killed a second person, then a third, a fourth, a fifth. 1 kill, 5 kills. Half a HP destroyed the city. The opposing team was completely dumbfounded. Who could tell them why the opposing team's standards were so high and low? Since they were so strong, why did they stand there and let them kill them 3 times? Were they playing with them? Of course, they wouldn't have expected it. The reason Qin Mo stopped moving was because of the youngster's kiss. And the reason they were wiped out was because of the conversation between Almighty Qin and a certain someone. The game ended. It was very straightforward. Qin Mo reached for his jacket and glanced at her, his lips lifting into a devilish smile. Let's find a secluded place to talk about bringing me home. After all. Qin Mo paused, his voice slowing. You will be embarrassed in front of so many people. Bo Jiao. The Almighty's hobby was to use her words to shut her up. In the end, this was a trap from the very beginning. Furthermore, it was a huge pit that was extremely difficult to fill. Qin Mo didn't say anything else. He reached out to grab her wrist, wanting to drag her out. Suddenly, an image appeared on the big screen in the center of the internet cafe. It was none other than an esports host interviewing the Japanese team. The Japanese were the strongest team in Asia. If Xiangnan was said to be China's ever-victorious team, in that case, the Japanese would be a winning team in the international arena. In the past 10 years, Dongying had never lost a single battle. Chapter 6:19. Back then, the existence of the Japanese had ignited the esports craze in Asia. In the past, esports had never been called esports, it had been called gaming. But now, esports had gradually become a recognized profession. There were even schools that offered esports as a profession. This was all because of the Japanese team's appearance, and the Chinese had realized that gaming could also attract fans. That year, anyone who had been a gamer wouldn't have heard of the team. Even now, it was the same. The fans of Heroes hadn't expected the Japanese to be invited to the National League. In that instant, The entire internet cafe was in an uproar. Did you see that? That's the legendary Hoshino, who rarely shows himself. Do you know what he's best at? Triple kill at critical HP, a grim reaper wielding a scythe. Isn't the interview taking place in China? Gosh, I really want to know where they are right now. I would like to meet my idol. Wait, it seems like the Japanese aren't here as guests. After the National League, there will be an Asian League competition here, and the Japanese are here to represent their country in the competition. However, the Japanese are really shameless. Listen to what the host said. They said that they only know Xiangnan in China, and that Xiangnan is the only team they know. They haven't even heard of the other teams. It can't be helped, the Japanese are too strong. No one could understand the Japanese's strength better than the gamers. They were an unshakable existence. It wasn't surprising that they reacted in such a manner. Lin Feng and Yun, who had been watching the video as well because they hadn't known there would be an Asian League after the National League. Therefore, after the host finished asking the questions, they put down the mouse in their hands one by one and looked at the interview on the screen, full of vigilance against a strong enemy. But it was obvious that Bo Jio wasn't. She looked at the people on the big screen without moving. He was dressed in a professional uniform, his legs long and slender, his features mesmerizing as he answered the host with a slight smile. If I say I sent it to my crush, will I lose fans? Hoshino, Bo Jio paused instinctively, all her attention focused on him. She didn't notice the change in the Almighty's gaze the moment she stopped. When Qin Mo followed the youngster's line of sight, he recognized the person on the screen immediately. Back in Tokyo, the young man stopped abnormally when he saw the image of this person. It was the same today. Once again, Qin Mo could see the focus in the youngster's eyes. It was a focus that was different from when the youth looked at anyone else. It was as if even the bottom of his eyes would jump with light. That kind of light might not be easily discovered, but precisely because Qin Mo had been watching her, he managed to catch it. Even he didn't seem to have that kind of focus. Qin Mo slowly stuffed his hands into his pockets. He glanced at the youngster's side profile and then at the youngster who was staring at the screen. His head hung low, and the stray hair on his forehead covered his eyes. Only his half-curled lips could be seen, as if he was smiling. Chapter 620. This should be the first time the Japanese have made such a high-profile appearance. I didn't expect them to be so good-looking. Lin Feng stood up, walking towards them. I wonder if there will be any arrangements for the competition. Qin Mo remained silent. Yun, who glanced at him. Regardless, we just have to do our best. Of course. Lin Feng chuckled, turning towards the youngster. Little Spade has to resolve his conflict with Captain. If not, our main team members wouldn't be able to adjust their emotions and lose. Yun, who didn't think it could be resolved so easily, there had to be an opportunity to clear things up. But the National League wasn't the time to talk about personal feelings. The appearance of the Japanese meant that this year's National League would be different from previous years. The skies outside darkened. Qin Mo didn't hold the youngster responsible because he received another call. This time, it was from the hospital regarding his hand injury. Back then, Feng had left Qin Mo's doctor's phone number. Hence, both of them would be notified at the same time. After leaving the internet cafe, Qin Mo headed to the hospital without telling anyone. But before he went to the hospital, he took one last look at the youngster and sent a message to Fatty. When you're investigating, check if he knows Hoshino. In the past, Qin Mo wouldn't have bothered about anyone's friendship. Perhaps, even he didn't know why he was so concerned about the youngster's focus. Perhaps it was because Qin Mo was familiar with the youngster's looks. Although he seemed gentle on the surface, his eyes had never been like that. That flickering darkness made him yearn for it. After watching the interview in the internet cafe, Bo Jio had indeed hidden her thoughts. She was wondering if she should acknowledge Hoshino. It was obvious that she wasn't the same as she had been in the past. Anyone who heard of such a thing would probably feel that it was absurd. She had been resurrected. And she had been reborn as a high school student. Even though she trusted Hoshino's ability to accept it, she still wondered if it was appropriate to acknowledge him. In the past, she never knew that Hoshino would choose to enter the esports industry after she left. In fact, if she thought about it carefully, Hoshino had said a long time ago that other than sleeping, the only other thing he loved to do was play games. Hoshino was different from him. There was no need for him to carry the burden of what she had to carry. The strength of the police this time was obviously different from before. Plus, the Almighty was here. Furthermore, China wasn't the Fifth Avenue, and it wasn't Tokyo either. The environment was bound to restrict their movements. If one day she was suspected, it wouldn't matter even if she went to jail. But Hoshino couldn't. She had to protect that person. That night, the First Central Hospital of Rivertown, the surgery building, 3rd floor. Chapter 621. I have to compete. After listening to the attending physician's words, Chinemo reached out and unrolled his half-rolled sleeves. The attending physician shook his head at his indifferent and handsome side profile. That was what Feng Yi heard when he arrived. His smiling eyes lost the light they had when he arrived. The last time he asked, Almighty Qin told him not to worry about his hand injury, so he thought it was already healed. But now that he thought about it, if he had recovered a long time ago, the attending physician wouldn't have asked him to pay more attention at that time. Feng Yi tightened his grip on the door handle and pushed it open. He ignored Qin-mo's gaze and focused on the attending physician. Dr. Liu, I will let him rest according to what you said. Can you tell me how long he needs to rest? At least 3 months. 3 months. Feng Yi knew what this meant. The entire National League was only 20 days long. 3 months meant that Almighty Qin had to give up this year's competition. Seeing this, the attending physician paused for a moment before continuing. Of course, if you were to make a trip to America and ask the experts there, you might be able to save some time. They have a way to stabilize it, but even so, you'll still need at least a month of rest. The nerves in the hand are very sensitive. In addition to your profession, the more intense the competition, the more flexible the fingers and the strength of the wrist are required. His hand might not be able to withstand such a huge amount of pressure if he's concentrated for a long period of time. I know that the National League is very important to you, but no matter how important a competition is, it can't compare to the health of a hand. Feng Yi understood. Ever since he met Qin-mo, he knew he was born for esports. It was just that in the beginning, as a manager, he had too many flaws. That was why even though he had won the Most Valuable Player award, he had never won a team championship. It wasn't like Xiangnan didn't try to poach Almighty Qin back then. However, that person refused. He also took out a sum of money to strengthen the Supreme Alliance. From then on, the Supreme Alliance belonged to the Qin Corporation. He finally didn't have to go back to inherit the family business that he didn't like. He started to have his own direction and became one of the top esports agents in the country. However, he owed that person a national championship. He owed it from the very beginning. They had thought that with Spadesy this year, that person could finally return to his old playstyle. Feng Yi still hadn't forgotten the thought that prompted him to become a manager. It was the scene of that aloof youngster waving his mouse and wiping out the entire team in a 1v5. To be honest, at that time, he had tricked the Almighty. Originally, he didn't have much experience as a manager. It was just that his family was in the entertainment industry, so he didn't know that esports and entertainment were different. Other than handling some things well, it was more important to find good teammates. Come to think of it, ever since the team battle, that person had never waved his mouse as unscrupulously as before. But when it came to working with Little Spade, Feng Yi lowered his lids. Dr. Liu is right. No matter how important the competition is, it can't compare to the health of a hand. Chapter 622. Yes, it isn't just a competition for Supreme Alliance, but you have to receive treatment. Feng Yi didn't back down. Head to America first, and we can talk about the future. Qin-mo buttoned up his shirt slowly and stuffed his hand into his pocket. His gaze was deep. I'm not going. The attending physician let out a long sigh. Is winning or losing really that important? It's not a matter of winning or losing. When Qin-mo said this, he had already walked to the door. His voice was neither loud nor soft. I just don't want to leave behind any regrets. No matter if they won or lost. His biggest regret was not being able to participate. He had said that he wanted to lead Supreme Alliance to the national championship and not be absent when Supreme Alliance lost. Regardless of whether he could continue his career in the future, he couldn't leave now. Of course, Feng Yi knew what Qin was thinking. He knew he couldn't persuade him, but he couldn't let things develop like this. Looking at the tall and straight back disappearing at the end of the corridor. The more Feng Yi thought about it, the more likely candidate was Bo Jiao. He knew better than anyone else who Almighty Qin had kissed at the masquerade party. He also knew that to Almighty Qin, that young man was different from anyone else. After leaving the hospital, Feng Yi called the youngster. This was the first time he didn't follow Qin Mo's instructions. The night outside was dark and gloomy. His voice had also changed. He was no longer the old fox. "There's something I need to talk to you about." When she received the call, Bo Jiao had just reached home. She was biting on the zipper of her jacket and preparing to remove her clothes. When she heard Feng Yi's words, she paused. Without asking, she stuffed a hand into her pocket, her voice clear. "Sure, where do you want to meet?" Feng Yi admired the youth's straightforwardness. At the same time, he knew very well that the youth was tight-lipped. In some ways, Spade Z and Almighty Qin had too many similarities. The most important thing in a match was who would set the pace. In order to convince Almighty Qin to treat his hand injury first, there had to be a fiery person to lead the Supreme Alliance. Yun Hu and Lin Feng weren't suitable. Spade Z was the only one who had never lost, just like how he had been when he first appeared. The night grew darker. Di Honghua was still boiling soup when she saw her Jiao pull up the zipper of her jacket to the top and put on a pure black mask. Her gaze froze. "Why did you go out as soon as you came back?" "Something came up last minute." Bo Jiao smiled faintly, her exposed eyes beautiful. "Mom, I'll accompany you when I come back." Di Honghua was very easy to coax. After hearing her Jiao's words, she instructed, "It's cold outside, and the smog is heavy. Wear another mask and clothes. Don't catch a cold." Jiao's body usually looked fine, but once he caught a cold, it would be worse than normal. That was why Di Honghua was so nervous. But fortunately, now her economic conditions were better again. In addition, Jiao didn't go to those messy nightclubs anymore. Di Honghua was relieved. Feng Yi arranged to meet at a coffee shop. The cafe was only open until 10 p.m., but it was quiet and no one from the media would notice them, so it was convenient for them to talk. Chapter 623. This is the scan the doctor gave Almighty Qin today. It's about his injury. The attending doctor said that he has to stop all competitions or his hand might not be able to play anymore. Bo Jiao stilled. In that moment, she forgot to remove her mask. During the competition, no one had mentioned the Almighty's injury. But she had assumed that since he was able to participate in the competition again, it meant that he had recovered. "Why, only you know about this," Feng Yi continued, tilting his head towards the window. Feng Yi continued, tilting his head to look out the window. Lin Feng and the others all thought that Almighty Qin had recovered. In fact, if the attending doctor hadn't called me, I wouldn't have realized it. The moment he said that, the atmosphere turned heavy. The atmosphere seemed to be heavy, and neither of them spoke. Feng Yi wasn't sure how long had passed. The youngster sitting opposite him finally spoke, her dark eyes deep. "Brother Mo won't give up on this competition, that's what he insists on." Feng Yi paused. "You're right. I'll look for him tomorrow." With that, Bo Jiao stood up. "I understand what you mean, he has to be treated first." Similarly, Bo Jiao knew what it meant for the Almighty to miss the National League. Bo Jiao realized she had been wrong. Back then, the Almighty had mentioned that he might be absent for 1 or 2 matches. She had assumed he was going to investigate Z. But after hearing Feng Yi's words, she understood that it wasn't because of the police but because his injury had reached a certain threshold. In order to prevent his opponents from finding his weakness at the start of the National League, he would be absent for the first 2 matches. It wouldn't be a problem during the regular games, but it would be a different story when it came to a professional competition. The faster the hand speed, the more severe the damage to the Almighty's hand. Moreover, the Almighty had used the 3000 knife cutting. Such a special technique didn't just depend on the opponent's speed but also the strength of the wrist. Hence, the pressure on the wrist would be felt indirectly. But once he entered the National League, it wouldn't be as easy as the regional competition, especially against Xiangnan in the future. Regardless of whether it was a 1v1 or 5v5, the Almighty would lose if he didn't use the 3000 knife cutting. Based on her understanding of the Almighty, if he used 3000 knife cutting again, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even though the Almighty knew about it, he still decided to use it limitlessly in the semifinals, especially against Xiangnan, for Supreme Alliance to win the national championship. He had long planned to use his future career in esports to exchange for it. Otherwise, the Almighty wouldn't have hidden his hand injury. Firstly, he didn't want anyone to stop him after finding out. Secondly, he didn't want anyone to feel burdened. From the start, Bo Jio had said that she couldn't bear to see him lose and couldn't bear to see him walk down the altar. A person like the Almighty, handsome on the outside and perfect on the inside, shouldn't have such regrets. For the first time, he felt sorry for someone else. Bo Jio's thoughts were more important. Forgive her selfishness. The people around him were the most important. The youngster lowered his lids and opened his email on his phone. He paused all actions to track down the fake Spade Z and hit his tracks again. Chapter 624. The National League was around the corner. An overwhelming number of reports came flooding in. Just as Feng Yi had said, no one in the team knew about Qin Mo's hand injury. Many of them had been waiting for this day for a long time, be it the old members like Lin Feng or the new members like Shui Yaoyao. The National League wasn't just a competition to them. All the mockery disappeared. Or perhaps they could fight side by side. Shui Yaoyao couldn't explain her emotions. After a day of running, when she saw the day marked in red on the calendar, her heart beat slowly and solemnly. Yun Hu and Lin Feng were still practicing their hand speed. For the past 365 days, when others couldn't understand why they liked to play games, they had spent most of their time on it. There wasn't a single effort that shouldn't be fulfilled. But behind this kind of fulfillment, there was usually someone supporting them. The morning sun shone down gently. Almighty Qin hadn't expected to see the youngster sitting in his room the moment he opened his eyes. A certain someone was sitting by the window, holding a glass of milk as she fed the cat. The cat obviously didn't want to talk to her. A certain someone poured some milk onto her hand, ignoring the cat's disregard as she placed it on her fingertips. One look and it was obvious that she hadn't kept any animals. Indeed, Bo Jio hadn't kept any animals. After she had arrived, Movie Queen and had tasked her with waking the Almighty up and feeding the cat at the same time. She felt that it would be better to wait for the Almighty to wake up naturally, hence, she had decided to feed the cat first. Who knew that the Almighty's cat would treat the handsome guy like dirt, giving him an arrogant expression. I'm going to shave your fur, let's see if you're still like this. Qin Mo, who had just woken up, heard the small threat. Qin Mo arched a brow. He had just woken up and his voice was hoarse but magnetic. Princess, come here. The cat heard his voice. It meowed immediately, pouncing towards the beautiful man on the bed. Where was the arrogance? Bo Jio placed the milk down, watching the fat cat. The big fat cat seemed to have sensed her gaze. He turned and shot her a look that said she was a stupid human, allowing her to experience it herself. Bo Jio smiled. Brother Mo, how about grilled cat claws for breakfast? Be careful, it might take it seriously and give you a claw. Qin Mo looked at the youngster and didn't have the slightest intention of getting up. Bo Jio arched a brow. You must be a female. It's male. Qin Mo caressed the cat's body with one hand and leaned against the headboard. Bo Jio paused. A male cat called Princess? What? Not good? Qin Mo raised his eyebrows. Bo Jio smiled. That's good. Princess, call one over. The big fat cat. Meow, this human with a suspicious aura. Don't think that I can't understand the smile in his voice. So what if a male cat is called a princess? What happened? Qin Mo glanced at the ball that had exploded in his hand, his brows twitching. How did you provoke it? It usually doesn't do this to boys. Because I'm not a boy. Bo Gio sat on the chair and placed her chin on the back of the chair. She glanced at the cat and thought that it must have smelled his scent. She smiled. I'm not sure. It's probably the first time we're meeting. He thinks I'm too handsome and is jealous. Chapter 625. He forced himself not to think about the uncontrollable images. It wasn't difficult for Chin Mo, but he had never felt the urge to kiss and possess her the moment he saw her. After calming down, he found it comfortable to be in this position. The young man was sitting very close to him. No matter how he looked at him, he was pleasing to the eye. The youngster dragged the chair until it was the closest to him. Brother Mo, are you taking in a disciple? What do you want? Chin Mo watched the face that was so close to him, the white skin with the fur on it. Bo Gio smiled. There's a mission in the hero game that requires both master and disciple to complete. Brother Mo, can you teach me how to play like a bookworm, using calculations to fight a 1v5? Chin Mo released the cat. You want to change your strategy? Be more precise. Bo Gio knew she wasn't the same type as the Almighty. She wouldn't change her strategy, but she needed to improve. Fortunately, Chin Mo wouldn't reject the youngster's request. He said faintly, "Come over." Bo Gio was focused on improving herself and raising her conditions. She didn't notice their positions. Chin Mo didn't notice either. Chin Mo's hand went around the youngster's back and pointed at the screen. With your positioning, you should be able to use this formation to control him, then calculate. His voice was very low, and when it rang in the ears, it gave people the feeling that he was still talking about physics. It wasn't until later that Chin Mo realized their position. Surprisingly, a certain someone was exceptionally obedient today. Chin Mo lowered his lids to look at the person in his arms. She was scrolling through the characters on her phone, trying to control his urge to kiss her. He took a photo when the youngster wasn't paying attention. The photo was affectionate and wouldn't cause anyone to think otherwise. But Chin Mo had said that he wanted everyone to know who this person belonged to. There were still people expressing their opinions on the official Weibo. Some people were unwilling to be left out. Basically, they felt that Spade Z was putting on a show. Chin Mo's methods were always ruthless. He posted the photo with a few words. A certain someone's way of coaxing others is to come over to my place to play games. The moment the reply came out, quite a few people said, I told you to give out dog food. Almighty Chin didn't give out dog food yesterday, but that didn't mean there wasn't any dog food. Why did it feel like they were being abused? Just playing games? Playing games while sitting in my arms? I also want to sit in my boyfriend's arms and play games in the future. Little Spade is gaming and Almighty Chin doesn't forget to take pictures? This gives me a lot of room to think. Let's not talk about anything else. Both of them are so handsome, and Almighty Chin has just woken up and discovered another incredible secret. How can they be so pleasing to the eye? Almighty Chin, you've changed. Almighty Chin. Bo Gio, who was still absorbing all the attacks, didn't see the official Weibo. She glanced down at the screen and waited for the 1v5 team to be wiped out before saying, Brother Mo, I know about your hand injury. Chin Mo frowned. He stopped scrolling through his official Weibo, his side profile handsome. Why are you so obedient today? Are you here to persuade me? Chapter 626. Chin Mo had thought that this guy would talk a lot, but on second thought, this guy was never one to talk so much. Chin Mo glanced at the youngster who was leaning close to him. He reached out to flick the sharp handsome face and said slowly, Are you trying to force me to treat you or force me to sleep with you? Chin Mo's eyes widened, and his voice was calm. Are you forcing me to treat you or to sleep with you? There was such a coincidence in one situation. Because Princess ran down, Auntie Zhang held the cat and stood at the door in a daze. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. The plump princess cried out in her arms. In the words of a cat, it was, You human with an abnormal aura, let go of my master. Of course, Bo Gio heard the commotion. She turned and glanced at Madame Zhang's expression. I knew it. There was no need to say anything. After all, Her current posture looked like she was about to force herself on him. Coupled with the Almighty's words and her previous dark history, there was no way she could clear her name. Qin Emo also saw the person over there. He raised his eyebrows and said slowly, "Aunt Zhang, what's the matter?" "No, no, no, I'll carry the princess away. You guys continue." Auntie Zhang almost ran away, feeling very conflicted. If it was a girl who treated the young master like that, he could understand. Why did ninth young master's actions just now? She must be thinking too much. But young master had clearly said the word, sleep. It was a mess, a complete mess. So ninth young master had that kind of feelings for young master? Auntie Zhang hugged the princess, not caring if the princess would scream or not. She was in a daze. In the room, they were still staring at each other. Almighty Qin put his hand on the young man's waist and smiled faintly. "Well, you're not going to force me anymore?" Bo Jio arched a brow and pressed herself down, her breath landing beside his ear. She smiled. "Brother Mo, think about it. If something really happens to your hand, even someone as strong as me would be able to push you down. It would be too dangerous. I'm just complimenting your handsomeness. It would make you lose control." Qin Mo's eyes darkened, probably because he had seen the youngster in female clothing. Now, as long as this fellow supported himself by her side and approached her in this manner, the image in her mind would no longer be so pure. Since it was this person who took the initiative to approach. Then don't blame me for being impolite. Qin Mo exerted force with his left hand and flipped the person over. He pressed down on the youngster's shoulder and looked at the beautiful collarbone that was pulled out. His thin lips moved closer to that place and his voice was deep. "How can you not control yourself, She didn't expect the Almighty to tease her like this. His warm breath hit her collarbone, and it was hard to ignore. The most important thing was that the Almighty actually bit down on it. It was a real bite. Bo Jio felt hopeless. But since she had made preparations before coming, the Almighty wouldn't notice her secret. Hence, she didn't move. It would be dangerous if she moved further. In the future, she would be called the little bandage expert and the fake top scholar. It was a little painful and a little numb. In the end, there was only an indescribable feeling. Qin Mo lowered his head, his black hair falling down, covering his expression. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. Chapter 627. Hey, Brother Mo, are you born in the year of the tiger? Bo Jio moved, avoiding the ambiguous position. Her movements were still beautiful. Even if you want to bite me, I'll force you to go for treatment. With that, Bo Jio poked his right wrist. It's so perfect, there shouldn't be any flaws. Otherwise, how are we going to catch criminals in the future? Catch criminals with your brain, not your hands. Qin Mo looked at the youngster. His hair fell down and he looked exceptionally handsome. I won't miss this National League. You don't have to say anything else, understand? Bo Jio nodded. That's why I think we should make a compromise. You can go to America for treatment first and I'll fight the first few matches. I will last until the semifinals. I won't allow myself to lose and neither will Supreme Alliance to lose. Qin Mo remained silent. Bo Jio arched a brow. She pulled his hand over and clenched it into a fist. Brother Mo, you should trust me just like how I trust you. Besides, hero relies on strategy. If you use too much 3000 knife cutting in the early stages, you won't be able to keep up in the later stages. With Xiangnan's ability, if you can't go all out because of your hand injury, Brother Mo, you'll be even more regretful. 15 days. Qin Mo glanced up. I will only be gone for 15 days. During these 15 days, you have to inform me if anything happens. Bo Jio chuckled. 16 days, one more day to take a plane. Qin Mo didn't want to bargain with a certain someone. He just looked at the collarbone that he had landed hard on, his gaze deepening. Then he pushed the youngster away and pulled a towel. Where are you going? Bo Jio stood up as well. Why did they end up talking? Qin Mo threw a few words over without turning his head. Shower? Do you want to join me? I'm afraid I'll be jealous of Brother Mo's body, so I'll pass. Bo Jio found an excuse. I'm going downstairs to play games with Auntie. Brother Mo, After you shower, pack your things, I'll send you to the airport. Chin Mo watched the youngster's back view. Not only did a certain part not show any signs of softening, it even moved upwards. He was really going crazy. Chin Mo bent down and tore off his pants, along with his casual clothes. He took a cold shower, and the water droplets sobered up his body. However, his desire to obtain that person did not change. The beast imprisoned in the depths of his heart. He didn't know how long he would be locked up. If it wasn't for that person, perhaps he could do whatever he wanted. But it was precisely because he was that person. Not to mention disgust, he didn't want to see even the slightest bit of alienation. Chin Mo changed his clothes and went downstairs. The sound effect of Hero was already playing. Movie Queen and was rather adorable when she played. She kept talking. What's wrong with this sorcerer? I've already beaten him to low health, but he didn't continue fighting. Instead, he charged to the tower to attack it. There are a lot of new players in the mobile version. The youngster laughed. While playing with his phone, he didn't forget to turn his head to look. Hide in the bushes and wait for me. Movie Queen and was a little excited. Usually, this meant that Jio was going to lead her to kill someone. It was an interesting strategy. But before they could start killing, the youngster was pulled up by Chin Mo. He held onto her wrist, his voice low and deep as he leaned close to Bo Jio's face. Didn't you say you were sending me to the airport? Chapter 628. Movie Queen and didn't understand. Why are you going to the airport? The National League is tomorrow and the first match is in Jiang City, isn't it? She came back to watch the competition. Chin Mo replied. Leave the rest of the competition to Jio, I'm going to treat my hand. Movie Queen and paused, glancing at Chin Mo's wrist. You're not healed yet? Chin Mo didn't want to say in front of the youngster that he had only temporarily treated his heart. Movie Queen and smiled faintly, looking very elegant. I understand. Go, let Deputy Zhang follow you. Chin Mo didn't reject the arrangement. It was best not to let the outside world know what he was going to do. But his hand was still holding onto the youngster, with no intention of letting go. Movie Queen and watched as the two of them left, her voice filled with relief. Madame Zhang, Mo finally took the initiative to treat his injury. He even left in peace. It wasn't easy. Yes, madam. Madame Zhang stood at the side. Movie Queen and chuckled. He probably found someone worthy of his trust. To him, Jio is very precious. That scene still lingered in her mind. Madame Zhang didn't know how to reply. She couldn't possibly tell Madame that young Master Jio had almost forced himself on her, right? But judging from young Master's attitude, he was probably willing to be forced on. Madame Zhang had served the Qin family all her life and had seen such things in the courtyard. Sometimes two soldiers could see eye to eye. But it was a difficult path to walk. Hence, she chose not to say anything. In her heart, she hoped that the two young masters could think it through and be happy. But someone else didn't think so. Wu Zhen, who couldn't stand the youngster, tightened her grip on the mouse after seeing Chin Mo's official Weibo account. She took a deep breath and stood up. In reality, she couldn't understand why she had liked that person for so many years. Why didn't he ever respond to her? This kind of method was really too chilling. But no matter what, she still liked him. And all these changes were because of that clingy thing. Perhaps she should change her method. Wu Zhen lowered her gaze and dialed Han Susu's number. The first thing she said was, "The young man you like should be gay." Han Susu didn't pay much attention to the rest. When the person she liked turned out to be a gay, it was as if all the illusions had been shattered. She had supported Spade Z so much and trusted him so much. She didn't expect him to be like this. Disgusting. Han Susu rubbed her arms. No wonder he never responded to me. So that's why. I really misjudged him. I must expose him at the national competition. Wu Zhen frowned. It won't be good for Supreme Alliance. You should know that Brother Mo values Supreme Alliance the most. What should I do? I'm really disgusted right now. Some people's liking will deteriorate. When this liking deteriorated, it would become a kind of harm. Wu Zhen was very clear, so she wouldn't do anything. She only told Han Susu, and if Han Susu couldn't help it, she would do it herself. She would even thank Wu Zhen after she was done. In fact, Wu Zhen treated Han Susu as her younger sister, which was why she said all this. A gay, relying on the fact that he was a man, could get so close to that person, and he was getting more and more out of hand. He didn't respond to those who liked him. Such an existence violated the rules of this world. Chapter 629. I can't let my love go to waste. Han Susu continued on the other side of the phone. This kind of person is really scum. I want to expose him. After making this decision, Han Susu hung up Wu Zhen's call and started to think. She usually called so many friends to support that person. Wasn't it because she liked him? She thought that the youth didn't respond to her because of his cold personality. Now it seemed that he was a gay who had always been fawning over Big Brother Qin. She wanted to see how he could compete in peace after she exposed him. There were many kinds of likes, and the most terrifying one was extreme. Those who were used would never realize that they were being used. Even if he realized it, he was willing to do it. It was very simple because that was human nature. It had nothing to do with right or wrong. There was a saying, if I like you, then you must like me. I've already used my own way to like you, but if you still treat me like this, then I'll be disappointed in you. Han Susu was such a person. Moreover, this kind of person had always been self-righteous. If he gathered his friends to denounce a person, at the very least, he would be able to tear down that gay's disguise. That was Han Susu's goal. A matter had long changed its flavor through her imagination. Moreover, she felt that she had done so many things before and had not received any response. The other party was really not worthy, so when it came to her, the matter changed again. In addition, the average age of fans in the esports circle was quite young, so a few of them gathered together to discuss. If I knew he was gay, I wouldn't have liked him at all. In the past, when I saw him with the Almighty, I thought they were quite loving. Turns out he's actually gay. I can't accept it. We vote for him every day to boost his popularity. What a waste. Actually, I think it's fine even if it's a gay. Why didn't you tell everyone? I really like him, but this is the last time. Basically, there were all kinds of comments, and they all rushed to the official Weibo. Some of them weren't even Spade Z's fans. They were friends that Han Susu knew, pretending to be her fans and leaving messages as well. It revolved around the topic of gay men and asked a lot of questions. We like you, and this is how you treat us? That was the tone. The audience thought that Spade Z had done something to the other party, and their faces were full of "Exm." The official Weibo management was very effective and explained the ins and outs of the matter. Putting aside the fact that my Big Spade is straight, even if he is gay, has he slept with any of you? No, listen to me, Big Spade is gay, but he's Almighty Qin's. You guys have no hope really. Go get your lunchbox and go to sleep. We like him so much, but he's like this. As a passerby, I can't take it anymore. I feel that Spade Z is really inhumane, treating his fans like this. Confused, how did my Big Spade treat his fans? He's gay, he didn't say that. Because the replies were too powerful and it wasn't just one, but more than 10 of them appeared at the same time. Chapter 630. In fact, the real Spade Z fans wouldn't doubt it. They had already formed a force. From the start of the youngster's debut till now. They understood that youngster. As long as he didn't hurt anyone, so what if he liked someone of the same gender? Hence, when Feng Yi's post came out, everyone united together, presenting the facts and reasoning about what the person they liked was like. Of course, there were still layers upon layers of questioning messages. Feng Yi knew that some people wouldn't realize that they were hurting him even though they said they liked him. Moreover, some of them weren't Spade Z fans. Because after some time, some people gave themselves away. One of the sock puppet's previous posts said, I would like to clarify something on behalf of all of us. We are all sensible. After all, we like Spade Z so much. Even if we are unhappy, we will support him silently. The next post said, hee hee, who wants to cheer for him? I'm just a passerby, so I said a few words because I couldn't stand it. Feng Yi found it hilarious. It was a contradiction. It was a pity that some people were too young and couldn't understand. Fortunately, the Real Spade Z fans had become an invincible force. Sometimes he was really proud of this power. They didn't need too much emotional interaction, but they could see the true nature. Feelings might be precious. But when they came together and liked the same person, that was because that person had the same beliefs as them. Just like back then, he chose Chinamo. No matter what, he would believe in that person. Things didn't blow up. But once the word gay came out, someone would definitely notice it. And that was what Han Susu wanted. Next was to find someone. How could that be enough? She already knew about the incident at the crime scene. She couldn't cause trouble here, but it didn't mean she couldn't cause trouble at the scene. Coincidentally, she had met some hardcore fans and chatted with them. She could bring the troublemakers to the scene. She wouldn't have to do anything then, she could just watch like today. Sigh, she was really disgusting. How could she like a gay? And who did he think he was? He liked him so much, but he didn't reciprocate. She was just messing with him in passing. I like the feeling that he can't do anything to me even if he doesn't like me. Anyway, someone would stand up for her. Han Susu was right about this. Because Feng Yi needed time to deal with this. He didn't want to tell those two either. Feng Yi lifted his head and glanced at the clock hanging in the office. Little Spade had already sent a text saying that he had persuaded the person and was now sending the Almighty to the airport. Feng Yi knew what Almighty Qin's departure meant to Supreme Alliance. At such a crucial time, everyone needed to stand together through thick and thin. Because in the future, all the pressure would be on the young man alone. As smart as the youngster was, he understood that when a newcomer took over the position of the vice-captain of the Supreme Alliance, everyone would take it for granted if he won. But if he lost, he would face either incomprehension or condemnation. Even if he understood, the youngster didn't say much when he first found him. He only told him one thing: "I won't let Brother Mo step down from the altar." When the young man said this, his eyes were so bright that they were almost black. Chapter 631. At that time he was really touched. In the end, the youngster stopped him with a hand gesture, and very handsomely interrupted him. It's only right for a younger brother to do something for his older brother. So, are you really brothers? What about kissing? Don't bully me because I've never been in a relationship before. I still understand the most basic principles. Old Fox Feng didn't expose him. In his heart, he was certain that Little Spade was sacrificing himself for love. If he insisted on saying brother, what could he do? On the other side, the so-called brothers were saying goodbye at the airport. It was just that the Almighty's method was different from others. I'll have someone watch you. Qin Mo arched a brow. If you use that technique again, the police will arrest you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ah, Bo Jio replied. I've been busy with the competition recently and haven't had time to use it. Give me your phone. Qin Mo's voice was faint. Bo Jio arched a brow. She didn't understand why the Almighty wanted her phone, but she still handed it over since it was a farewell. Qin Mo glanced at the call history, swiping his fingers, deleting a contact. It wasn't anyone else, it was Li Mengran. Break up, you have to be thorough, don't be a jerk. All right, Brother Mo, you're right. Bo Jio smiled faintly. Don't worry, it won't affect my competition. Qin Mo glanced at the youngster. Bo Jio assumed that with her good looks, she would be trusted. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo reached out and took the fat cat from Deputy Zhang, placing it in the youngster's hands. Let it supervise you. Meow. The big fat cat tilted its head. Bo Jio arched a brow. Princess? A cat supervising her? Yes, carry it everywhere you go. As soon as you get close to a girl, it will react. Qin Mo's voice was faint. The big fat cat reached out with his claws, scratching her with all his might. It was obvious he was treating her like a monster. Bo Jio pressed it down. I don't think it's useful, it doesn't get along with me. Then let it compete with you. If I find it thinner when I come back, I'll hold you responsible, Qin Mo said slowly. Bo Jio was confused. She had never had a pet before. How could she raise a cat that didn't look easy? That didn't seem good for her or the cat. The fat cat understood its master's meaning. It stopped scratching and turned its head to look at the handsome but oddly smelling young man in front of it. Its face could be made into an emoticon, and it had an expression of, "What the F asterisk CK?" Adjutant Zhang watched from the side and couldn't help but want to laugh. Qin Emo didn't bother about them. An artificial voice rang out from the airport lobby. It was melodious and familiar, with a unique gentle quality. "Attention all passengers, your flight CA-8157 to New York is now boarding. Please board the plane from gate 13. Qin Emo didn't take the cat back, only lifting his luggage. His figure was tall and slender, his fingers clenched into a fist. He pushed the youngster's head, his gaze deep. "Wait for me to come back." "All right." Bo Jio had wanted to bid farewell to the Almighty properly, but the cat in her hand seemed to be playing with its life, tossing and turning nonstop. Chapter 632. Bo Jio hadn't expected this hug. Until her face plunged into a warm chest. She could feel the sweater brushing against her cheeks, and the Almighty's other hand rubbing her head. At that moment, the surrounding voices became much quieter. When a person was too close to another person, one could hear the sound of their heartbeat. Because it was at the airport, everyone was saying goodbye. Therefore, even if a handsome man pulled the young man into his arms, no one would think too much. The only one who thought too much was Adjutant Zhang. After all, he wasn't like Feng Yi, who had never experienced something like this. It was his first time seeing young Master Qin hug someone. Both of them were eye-catching, not only in their faces, but also in their figures, temperament, and clothes. Even though Bo Jio's head was buried in his embrace. However, the passers-by who went aboard the plane could still see a young man in a black coat holding a white cat in his arms. His head was in the arms of a man. The man was very handsome. He had deep eyes, a straight nose, and slightly curved lips. He gave off a kind of indifference that was difficult to approach. However, the moment he touched the young man's face, his indifference seemed to have been melted by something, creating a smile that was like the first thaw of winter snow. "If you don't want to go to jail, then be good. When I come back, I have something to tell you." Bo Jio arched a brow. She didn't care if she would end up in jail since she wasn't weak enough to be caught easily. But Almighty, please make it clear. What exactly did he have to say? Was he doing this on purpose by throwing out the question and then walking away? Bo Jio watched his slender figure as he walked through the security checkpoint. He opened his arms wide for the security personnel to inspect. He was handsome. As expected, when the Almighty acted like this, she had the urge to raise him. Forget it, raising Almighty's cat was the same. She pressed down on the cat's tail again and threatened with a faint smile. "Brother Mo is leaving. If you keep messing around, I'll shave off your fur." Meow meow meow. "Master, come back quickly. This person with a strange aura is a pervert." Meow. Even though she was threatening him, Bo Jio hugged the big fat cat gently. She was a minor, so she couldn't drive. Adjutant Zhang did say that he would send her off. But it wasn't on the way. Moreover, it was convenient to take the train from the airport to Bo Jio's destination. Hence, after a while, Bo Jio's figure appeared at the ticket booth of the Jiang City subway, which was known as the most crowded place in the country. However, Bo Jio had indeed forgotten one thing. Jiang City was different from the Fifth Avenue and Tokyo. Animals weren't allowed on the train. But they were already here. The young man raised his eyebrows. With a lollipop in his mouth, he unzipped his jacket and stuffed Princess into his arms, wrapping her up. There was nothing wrong with wearing thick winter clothes. The main thing was that even though Princess was a fat cat, she wasn't very big. Fortunately, the subway only checked the bag, there was no full-body scan. But along the way, there were already quite a number of people watching her. In this day and age, even men could get pregnant? Bo Jio lifted the cat higher as more and more people sized her up. Don't think that the princess was very obedient, because if she moved, the young man would definitely threaten her by her ear, shave the cat's fur. This world didn't care about cat rights. The princess was depressed, very depressed. Bo Gio reached out to caress its ears. The girl beside her watched as Bo Gio boarded the train. She had wanted to take another train but changed her route instantly. Chapter 633. That's right, the girl was a Spade fan, the type that had been playing for years. If she hadn't seen her big Spade, she could confidently say that she had become a Spade fan because of the youngster's beautiful skills and techniques, not because of his looks. After seeing him, he was really handsome. She wanted to call her friends over, but at the same time, she knew that not prying into Big Spade's privacy was the best way to protect the youngster. Hence, he stood beside the young man silently. All he wanted was to get a little closer. Truly liking someone seemed to be like this, always making the other party feel comfortable, not necessarily doing something to let the other party know. But why was her Big Spade's stomach so bulging? And why was the bulge moving upwards? Perhaps noticing the gaze from the side, the young man looked up. Princess followed the zipper that the young man had unzipped for her, revealing her little head. On her head were pure white cat ears that were still moving. That scene was so cute that it could make people have a nosebleed. Especially when the youngster raised his hand to adjust his collar, not covering it, and pulled on his wristband as if nothing had happened. He looked really cool. But Big Spade, you're going to be skewered. The girl really wanted to laugh. Bo Gio seemed to have sensed the commotion. She turned and placed a finger on her lips, gesturing for the girl to keep quiet. Just pretend you didn't see anything. All right. The girl lowered her voice. Can I tell you that I'm a Spade fan and I like you a lot? Bo Gio felt that her life was a cheat. Wherever she went, she would meet fans. The unexpected answer made her pause. On the other hand, the cat in Bo Gio's arms started to react. It started to bristle with an expression that said, "How dare you cheat on me behind my back? Are you tired of living, you stupid human?" Bo Gio didn't reply. She forced herself to suppress it. She held the cat with one hand and pressed its head down with the other. Indeed, she was too busy. The more the girl watched, the more she wanted to laugh. Bo Gio wasn't good at communicating with fans, so she used Princess to act cute the entire time. But the princess really didn't seem like a tomcat. Why did it seem like it was risking its life when it saw a woman? If it weren't for her powerful threat, the princess would have blown her up too. To be honest, it was too dangerous for the Almighty to raise such a cat. It could even smell a woman dressed as a man. Could it be a police cat? The two chatted for a while. Fortunately, this was a topic that the youth was good at. For example, games. Student Joe had a way of talking about games. When he heard that the girl was playing as a tank, he immediately gave a few words of advice. When you're playing, pay attention to whether there are any ranged attackers behind you. If there are, don't be afraid. Both of you can charge forward. If the opponent attacks you, you won't lose any HP. Once you're ready, it's very easy to kill the opponent's half HP. If you're good at playing, then pay attention to your positioning, how to dodge and attack. Practice the reaction speed of your fingers, avoid the opponent's attack, and hit the opponent's fragile DPS first. Time ticked by as the young man spoke. Finally, Bo Gio was about to alight. The girl tugged at the youth's sleeves, her eyes shining. National competition, please do your best. All right. Bo Gio smiled brightly. She stuffed one hand into her pocket, the other holding the cat as she walked into the crowd. This day had finally arrived. Chapter 634. Countless cameras were installed in the room. All the gaming platforms were ready to go, ready to broadcast live at any time. The field control held the loudspeaker in his hand and shouted until his mouth was dry. He finally stopped to drink a glass of water. This was different from the previous regional competition. What did the national competition mean? It meant that from now on, every one of them would be known by the people who played the game. Even the pictures of some MVP players would be broadcast all day and become the advertising spokespersons of some gaming companies. This match had determined the fate of many people for a long time. It was like a celebrity talent show, but different from a celebrity talent show. Because their success or failure depended on the team. because their original intention hadn't changed. They didn't want to have any regrets, they wanted to be recognized, and they wanted to fight side by side with their teammates. 7:30 in the morning. Shui Yaoyao prepared everything and went downstairs. She thought that she had never faced the gaze of her neighbors so calmly. All the sarcasm and malicious misunderstandings. At that moment, it didn't seem important. She wanted to go on a date that belonged to her youth. Just the thought that she still had a group of teammates ignited her blood. There seemed to be a kind of person, that kind of existence, that could become your strength. For example, Her Highness Jiao. Even though her mother married into the Jiang family, Shui Yaoyao's travel schedule didn't change. It took half an hour to run from home to the competition venue. She adjusted her watch, put on her uniform, and stepped on the sidewalk. Yun Hu and Lin Feng appeared together. They got out of a Land Rover, each carrying a pure black shoulder bag, looking very handsome. Feng Shang came earlier than others because his brother Feng Yi had to lead the fan group into the venue. And Han Susu's thoughts were on this. She had met some Spade fans before and now she had feelings for them, so it was convenient to talk about this kind of thing. Actually, at the beginning, Han Susu went to find Sister Turtle. After all, Sister Turtle was recognized as the leader of Spade fans. She even had contact with the officials and was recognized by them. As long as she conquered the officials, everything else would be easy. She told Sister Turtle about her feelings for Spade Z. Sister Turtle sent a hug icon. It's the same for everyone. Han Susu had chatted with Sister Turtle more than once, so it was convenient to talk again. In the past, she thought she liked Spade Z too much and wanted to know a lot about him. But even her brother couldn't ask her out. This time, she wanted to ask Sister Turtle to include her in the official fan group to support the live event. Sister Turtle was also busy and sent a message. I need the official list of the members. Han Susu coaxed and pestered, but it was to no avail. The other party's attitude remained the same. What a tough rock, he didn't even know how to be flexible. Why was he so difficult to approach? He wasn't like the Spade fans she had interacted with previously. Han Susu had learned her lesson from Sister Turtle, so she began to think of other ways. Finally, 3 people told her what the itinerary was like. With that, all the preparations were done. Then he found his own people and the 4 Spade fans to head to the competition venue. Let's first talk about the on-site screening. Although the fans were organized by the officials, there were audience members who could buy tickets to enter the venue. Han Susu made use of this opportunity to bring her people into the venue. She wanted to see if the youth could still maintain his composure when he was questioned by the crowd. Chapter 635. If you didn't like it before, then he wouldn't have become a terrifying existence. Some people always had the ability to misinterpret things. If she couldn't get anything in return, then the other party must have let her down. Moreover, she did not need to say anything when she arrived at the venue. The people she brought were enough to heat up the venue. Looking around, Han Susu brought her people to sit outside the Spade fan group, waiting for the contestants to enter the stadium. Every team had their own resting area. After Feng Yi arranged the Supreme Alliance fans, he came to the rest area, a sly smile on his face. It's time for the last time, are you all here? Of course. Lin Feng smiled. He was dressed in a handsome black uniform and placed his arm on Yun Hu's shoulder. Yun Hu remained silent, but his eyes shone with a different light than usual. Feng Shang was still stuttering. Captain isn't here yet. Feng Yi stilled. He had come early to inform everyone that Qin Mo wouldn't be appearing in the competition for the next 15 days. But it was one thing to think it through and another thing to say it. Because the war was imminent, Almighty Qin's departure would definitely affect the team's morale. At that moment he heard a swoosh. The black skateboard smashed open the wooden door, and the youth's handsome figure and shiny silver hair appeared. Captain isn't here, but Captain's cat is. With that, Bo Jiao pulled down the zipper, revealing a pair of majestic cat faces. Let me introduce you, Princess. Bo Jiao smiled faintly. It's to supervise everyone. The princess wanted to explode, so she raised her tail. Bo Jiao pressed her fingers. Princess means that it represents captain, and I'm honored to be everyone's vice captain. In the future, everyone can call me Little Captain. Using Baby Feng's words, I'll lead you to destroy people and fly. Lin Feng was stunned for a moment. Then he reached out and caressed the cat's head. He purposely avoided asking about Chinamo and said in a low voice, "Female cat? Meow." "A male." Bo Jio smiled faintly. "He's a male, what princess?" Lin Feng was shocked. Bo Jio arched a brow. "You have to ask the Almighty." Lin Feng shook his head. "Indeed, we mortals can't understand Captain's hobby." Everyone had a tacit understanding not to ask about his whereabouts. Perhaps this was the Supreme Alliance. Some questions would become a burden to the youth if he asked, so he decided not to ask. Yin Wuyao had been through a lot. He knew very well what it was like for a team to face the National League without their captain. He also understood what the young man who took over the position of vice-captain would have to shoulder in the future. Spitting out the cigarette in his mouth, Yin Wuyao walked over and extended his hand. "Vice-captain, are you ready to take us to destroy them? What do you think?" The youngster held the cat in one hand and stretched out the other. Supreme Alliance had always had a tacit understanding. They are not perfect. In fact, because of their unique playstyles, everyone had flaws in the game. Among them, there were even 2 rookies who had never seen a national competition. Some of them came from the most remote mountain villages in the county. However, this did not affect their cohesiveness. Everyone held out their hands. Layer after layer stacked on top of each other, with a snow-white fat cat in the middle. Chapter 636. That lounge became the place where everyone dreamed of setting sail. In the arena, all the cameras were set and ready, just waiting for the team to enter. At this moment, all the fans stood up, surrounding both sides of the road to show their support. On the Spade fan side, there was a huge banner. Under the banner was a beautiful mature woman, standing tall and straight. She looked to be in her 30s, with medium-length brown curly hair draping down her sides. She had a pair of large eyes and was dressed in a professional dress, giving off a sense of security just by standing there. The other Spade fans were adorable, stretching their necks out. They were the quietest among all the fans, but their eyes were shining brightly. Finally, someone walked out from the other side. All the lights gathered, forming a horizontal line. There was a total of 11 people, dressed in their uniforms, looking like a commander from Star Trek, exuding a handsome aura. But this time, Bo Jio was the one leading the team. The youngster had black eyes and silver hair, carrying a white cat in her arms. Even though she wasn't tall, she gave off an incomparably sharp aura. In an instant, the crowd erupted. The support began. The live stream started, a sea of red. However, just as Bo Jio led the team into the arena, a person suddenly rushed out, splashing the Coke in his hand at the youngster. A person suddenly rushed out and splashed the Coke in his hand at the young man. A gay treating his fans like this, I'm really speechless. No one had expected such a turn of events. Even Feng Yi froze, his mind blanking out. Sister Turtle was standing far away, unable to walk over. More importantly, there were 3 other Spade fans who surrounded the youngster. "Let me ask you, we like you so much, why did you?" No one bothered to listen to what they said. It was all in public. This kind of questioning was infinitely magnified and recorded on the camera. The youngster stood there, water droplets dripping down her short black hair and onto her clothes. Her smoky makeup was slightly damp, with so many people watching and so many cameras. It was such a pathetic scene. The true Spade fans stood up instantly. Their agitated gazes turned into heartache. The youngster had never been treated in such a manner. The white cat was still nestled in her arms. The cameras were anticipating the youngster's loss of control. Han Susu blended in with the crowd, watching the scene. Surprisingly, the young man didn't lose control of himself. He didn't even grab the man's collar and cripple him like before. It wasn't because she was kind, but because she knew how important this competition was, so important that she had to endure it. The cola was still dripping. Bo Jio raised her hand and pressed her silver hair down. She looked like a Greek god who had stepped into the arena. Her slender legs were dressed in a black uniform and the corners of her lips were lifted slightly. Even though she was in a sorry state, she was still arrogant and tempting. "Do you like me?" the youngster arched a brow, asking the three fans. The fan felt wronged. "Think about it yourself. How did we support you? What happened to you in the end?" Chapter 637. Baby Feng clenched his hands. He held back the words that were about to come out. He took a step forward. Both Lin Feng and Yun, whose eyes were deep. Shui Yaoyao wished she had a piece of tissue in her hand so that she could wipe the stuff off the youngster's face. Even from afar, she could see the heartache of the Spade fans. In fact, protection was relative. No one would be able to hold back when they saw the person they liked being treated like that. The Spade fans felt heartache and really wanted to retaliate. But at this moment, Sister Turtle stepped forward to block. Let him have a good match. This is the National League. We all know how long they have been preparing. There are fans of the other Supreme Alliance and not just Spade fans here. Let them see our support, Supreme Alliance. Victory! Their voices weren't loud, but it was a rallying cry. Unknowingly, under such circumstances, some of the topics that the media was prepared to publish couldn't be published. For example, Spade Z being questioned by his fans because of his sexual orientation. Is such an esports player still worthy of our love? Both topics couldn't be used anymore. The youngster didn't swallow the insult, but he didn't attack either. All of this was because of him. He had to win this match. Otherwise, how could he live up to everything that had happened in the past? How could he live up to those pairs of expectant eyes? How could he live up to his love for esports? There were cameras that scanned the youngster's face. Unknowingly, even though his gaze had never changed, there was an aura. The youngster's face was still stained with cola, but he stood straight, one hand in his pocket, the other holding the white cat, sitting in the competition area. The cameras couldn't capture the rest of the people, but they could clearly hear a wave of discussion. With Sister Turtle there to control the situation, there wasn't much conflict. The measures taken were to get some people to leave the arena. Of course, it was still a grievance. But some people forgot that there was no love in this world that would be questioned by everyone. It was a pity that this love was wasted. Perhaps even they didn't understand how it had turned out this way when they really liked him. This was growing up. Whether it was towards those who used to truly like Spade Z or Spade Z himself. We always had to go through deep and painful training to grow up step by step, to become invincible and indestructible. Alright, everyone look here, look here. This time, the commentator's style had clearly changed. How should I put it? That person was a little girly. As a commentator, I just want to ask, where did Almighty Qin go? Did my eyes deceive me? Spade Z became the vice captain? I say, Supreme Alliance, didn't you choose the captain based on his looks? Sai, you should have said so earlier. I should have applied for the job too. These words instantly drew a round of boos. However, it was enough to show the skill of the commentator. He had successfully attracted the audience's attention to the match. Chapter 638. I love Spade Z's handsomeness when he fights alone. Why is he fighting a team battle this time? This seems to be the first time Spade Z is fighting a team battle. I'm a little excited. I believe all the fans here are feeling the same way. Let's wait and see. The shoutcaster finished speaking. Nietzsche, the other shoutcaster, agreed. Let's wait and see. The sharp contrast between the shoutcasters added a lot of fun to the competition. The opposing team was also a respectable opponent. The two sides started fighting. First, it was a 1v1. Yun, who was alone. His playing style was like his character, steady and full of knives. In the end, he won the first round with 1 kill against 3. 2v2, Feng Shang and Yin Wuyao's team. This was a combination no one had expected. After all, Feng Shang was still a newbie. But Bo Jio didn't think so. This was the initial phase, a good chance to train the newbies. Both Feng Shang and Shui Yaoyao had to adapt to the rhythm of the National League as soon as possible. This way, they wouldn't have to cram at the last minute. Feng Shang indeed didn't have much experience in the professional league. But no matter what, he was a famous RMB player in Zone C of Hero. Perhaps many people didn't think that there was anything to be afraid of when he joined the professional league halfway through. But they forgot something. Feng Shang's gaming time and experience wasn't any less than anyone else. The opposing team probably thought that Feng Shang was the easiest target to attack and wanted to ambush him from the bushes. Unexpectedly, Feng Shang's gaming instincts told him that there was an 80% chance that there was someone there. He first used a big move into the bushes and then retreated swiftly. Both of them drank half a bottle of HP at the same time. Yin Wuliao was playing as an assassin. He was originally in the vicinity, and now that the opportunity had come, he sneaked in and attacked. He locked onto one of them. When Feng Shang saw Yin Wuliao, he moved back to his original position. The two of them instantly formed a team on the left and right. The next second, a sound effect was heard. They won. This was undoubtedly a reversal of the situation. They thought they would lose. In the end, the opponent neglected the number of deaths and died for the third time. With only one person left, there was no way they could resist Yin Wuliao and Feng Shang. Finally, team battle. 5v5. Someone shook his head. Even though Supreme Alliance won both matches and the team battle isn't important anymore, I still want to say that just from this 5v5 match, the chances of Supreme Alliance winning aren't high. But Almighty Qin's absence is a fatal blow to Supreme Alliance's lineup. You have to know that the most important thing in a 5v5 is the team's compatibility. In other words, a team has to have assassins, sorcerers, support, and tanks. Anyone who has seen Spade Z's results would know that he is an assassin. Lin Feng is also an assassin. With two assassins in a team, without a sorcerer, the chances of winning aren't high. You have to understand that this is the National League, not like the wild games where you can casually take a kill. The opponents are strong too, so this is destined to be a losing battle. If Almighty Qin is here, there won't be a problem because Almighty Qin is an all-rounder. He can handle whatever the team lacks. The man didn't finish his words. A notification sound rang out from the big screen above. Spade Z, Sorcerer. Chapter 639. Did Spade Z practice as a sorcerer while he was preparing for the match? Even if he did, it hasn't even been 5 days. He's at a disadvantage playing a character he's not familiar with. Regardless, let's watch. The sound of discussion from the audience was not soft. It was a 5v5 team battle. Bo Jiao sat in the middle, dressed in her uniform with a white cat on her knees. Shui Yaoyao and Lin Feng sat on her left and right. Coco was there as well, playing the support role. But for some reason, such a lineup still made people feel a little worried. When the match starts, regardless of how many players there are in the middle lane, I'll be alone. Bo Jiao instructed in a low voice. Yao Yao, you'll play as the archer and take the bottom lane. The rest of you, go to the top lane. Lin Feng, you'll fight in the jungle at the bottom lane. Don't worry about anything else, just pay attention to the bushes. Now, put on your headphones and switch on the mic. After Bo Jiao finished speaking, everyone put on their headphones, their eyes glued to the screen. Every side profile was filled with a different kind of youth. Such a cool scene was very suitable to be displayed on the big screen. Black combat uniform, delicate and pretty eyebrows. Everyone's posture when choosing their skills was very uniform, and they all pressed the enter key with a crisp sound. Swoosh. The special effect sounded, officially entering the game. The fans outside the arena tightened their grip on the cola bottles in their hands. It's really nerve-wracking, isn't it, fangirls? Come, let's talk about some technical issues. If they split into 3 lanes, the sorcerer would usually take the middle lane. But Spade Z is used to killing and might not be able to adapt to the sorcerer role. This will be the crux of the match. The archer on the bottom lane is important too. If they aren't strong in the early stages, they won't be able to keep up in the later stages. There are indeed many loopholes in Supreme Alliance. Why do you say that? Loopholes? The archer is a newbie, it should be easy to attack her. If I was their team, I would arrange for 2 to take the middle lane, 2 to take the bottom lane and the other to defend the top lane. Regardless of whether they hit Shui Yao Yao or Spade Z, they would be able to take the first kill and complete the first kill. F***CK, it's really as you said, they are going to take the middle lane and bottom lane in pairs. This is going to be interesting. In the game, Coco hesitated when he saw someone taking the middle lane. Bo Jio's voice came through the earpiece. Continue attacking. Coco was obedient, but he was worried that Bo Jio wouldn't be able to hold on. This was indeed the standard of the National League. I know mages don't have much health. The other side sent an assassin and a tank to charge straight at the middle lane. This is a good chance. Hide in the bushes. I'll use a big move to trap Spade Z while you use your big move to kill him. This strategy was most effective against mages. In a team battle, a tank's ultimate skill could directly interrupt a mage's ultimate skill. Moreover, mages had low HP, so if a tank managed to crouch down, they would definitely lose half their HP. In addition, the assassin's ultimate skill, 1 second, could directly reduce the mage's HP to critical. If the mage were to counterattack, it would definitely be enough to kill. On the other side, the vice leader played as a tank and was very particular about his positioning. He stood in the middle lane, silently waiting for his big move to attract Spade Z's attention. Chapter 640. On the big screen, everyone could see the scene clearly. Unlike the players in the game, they could only see the status of their own team. Hence, when she controlled the ice blade to move forward, every Spade Z fan's heart skipped a beat. Even the shoutcaster's expression changed. Everyone knew that Spade Z was definitely going to die this time. But at this moment, Bo Jio paused, releasing a freezing skill towards her lower right side. Then she walked back to the defense tower. This series of actions was unexpected. Why is Spade Z releasing skills so randomly? Can he really play like that? His opponent is in front and he's attacking towards the right. Has he not mastered the skill? Han Susu hadn't been chased out since she hadn't caused any trouble, which meant that she was still in the audience. But due to the incident just now, it wasn't suitable for her to stay among the Spade fans. In order to avoid being discovered, she shifted to the left side, blending into Coco's team since they were closer. Coco's fans were younger and didn't know much about the game. A small portion of them liked Coco because he was cute and adorable. That was why she said those words. Han Susu's eyes shifted. I like the entire Supreme Alliance team and their playing style, but Spade Z's way of doing things is problematic. He clearly can't do it himself, but he still wants to take the middle lane alone. His unique style is really unbearable. What if the team loses because of him? Sigh, how should I put it? He can still play solo, but as the vice-captain, he might harm Supreme Alliance. For the sake of Supreme Alliance, I won't say much. Coco's fans were more composed and didn't join Han Susu in mocking him. But from the looks of it, Han Susu knew that if he didn't join her in mocking now, he might not be able to keep his composure in the future. His expression revealed that this small mine was buried and would definitely explode in the future. It was a pity that her calculations were wrong. Coco was a professional player after all. How could his fans be noobs? One of the girls swept her a glance. You're a Spade fan, aren't you? Why did he come to our side? Also, sis, let me give you a reminder. Do you know why Spade Z shot an arrow into the bushes? It was to guard against an ambush. This is basic knowledge. How can you watch the game if you don't understand? He really didn't understand. How could someone treat their idol like this? Why do you look like an anti-fan? Han Susu's face darkened. She was thinking about how to smooth things over. But the girl wasn't a fan of Spade Z. She didn't pay much attention to Han Susu and focused on the competition. In fact, every normal person was watching the competition. Only an abnormal person would pay attention to other things and attempt to create some contradictions. After all, Han Susu's family was in the business world. She knew how to communicate with people and what kind of people to target. There were some people that she couldn't incite. However, there were some people who could use money or emotions to make others lose their judgment and attack others. This was the subtlety of how to conduct oneself. On the screen, Spade Z was almost in danger more than once. During the third round, Bo Jio had lost half of her HP. This was the most heart-wrenching part of Spade's fans. Chapter 641. However, there was one thing that not only the fans but also the opposing team members had overlooked. On the other hand, the feminine commentator's eyes lit up. I understand. Understand what? The audience didn't have time to listen to the following explanation. On the screen, Spade Z waved his arm, forming a huge silver rain formation around him. That person was standing in the middle of the rain formation. The two big moves of the opposing team were gone, all in the middle of the rain formation. To Spade Z, the rain was just rain. But to the opponent, it was a blade. Let's go! The opposing vice-captain was on the verge of death. He thought that he could at least let the assassin leave first. But how could the youngster let them go? Lin Feng. It was a low voice that could be heard by the audience through the earphones. Here, come on, little Spade, let's fight our revolutionary cooperation. That's right. It was cooperation. Lin Feng, who had finished clearing the jungles, was already near the middle lane. He took the opportunity to flank up. So what if he crossed the tower? He could just jump back after killing the opponent with low HP. Instantly. Only 2 words appeared on the screen. Oh, first kill. A first kill that no one had expected. The audience's uproar almost lifted the roof of the venue. Someone was swinging his baton, making loud banging noises. But it wasn't over yet. Until the second sound was heard, double kill. Beautiful. The shoutcaster couldn't help but slap the table. Quick, quick, quick. Let's take a look at the replay. The other shoutcaster was still brooding. What did you mean when you said you understood? Why did Spade Z choose to be a solo mid? Other than the fact that he needs to develop quickly, he can also hold back the opponent's main tank and main attacker. He can also buy time for Lin Feng to gain experience. Once the opponent's tank's big move is exhausted, he can form a rain spell. And it's obvious that he didn't do it randomly. It's because Lin Feng is nearby, so he can kill him in time. You mean? The other shoutcaster didn't even dare to think about that guess. The feminine shoutcaster covered his face, extremely bashful. This isn't his idea, it's my big Spades. It's fine if he doesn't make a move, but once he makes a move, he has to make a double kill. After hearing the shoutcaster's words, in an instant, the viewership of the live stream reached its peak. That was not all. The two of them had even taken down the defense tower in the middle lane. They were so fast that they could feel the blood flowing in their veins heating up. This was undoubtedly a feast for the eyes. Coco's fans gave Han Susu a look, letting her experience it for herself. Han Susu's heart was ablaze. Her purpose in coming here was to embarrass that person. On one hand, she didn't expect Spade fans to be so protective of that person. On the other hand, he had been splashed. How could he win? The scene from earlier appeared on the big screen again. The camera pulled back, and the young man's calm face was reflected on it. He was handsome, fair, and a little too handsome. Feng Yi looked at this scene. In reality, no one knew where the youth had grown. Endure silently for the sake of the team. We aren't kind enough, we don't know how to deal with people, and we even have a fatal flaw in our character, but we can grow into what the important person needs. Chapter 642. Sorcerer players knew that as long as the foundation was good, the formation would be stronger in the later stages. Hero was a popular game because it was popular. It was also because it was a game that required you to understand a lot in order to play well. Teamwork was crucial. After taking down a defense tower, Bo Jio and Lin Feng didn't rush forward. Instead, they crossed the wilderness and headed towards the bottom lane. It was too late for the enemy to retreat. Shui Yaoyao used a big stun move. Lin Feng went for the kill. Bo Jio used another freeze. Shui Yaoyao took the chance to kill. Handsome. Indeed handsome. Once the battle started, the rhythm of the battle quickened. The opposing attacker and tank revived and headed towards the bottom lane. Along with the archer in the wilderness. The three of them encircled Supreme Alliance from the left and right to destroy Supreme Alliance. Since Spade Z was left with half his HP. This time, they wouldn't waste their big move, they had to break Spade Z's rain spell. Bo Gio didn't intend to fight them at all. She released a freeze skill and ran into the bushes, avoiding the assassin and returning to the tower. Shui Yaoyao and Lin Feng would definitely lose HP, but it didn't matter because Bo Gio was at the bottom of the tower. Since Bo Gio was below the tower, with one healed, the other two would be back to full health. D***. We didn't catch him. Spade Z doesn't seem like a newbie when playing sorcerer. The opposing captain's voice deepened. From now on, we can't be careless, the information we received was wrong. Since we can't catch him, we'll go to the top lane to catch someone else. Lu, stay invisible and go to the top lane. All right. The assassin named Lu was fast, no one could see his shadow as he advanced. The revived player guarded the middle lane. The other two were at the bottom lane. The other player was fighting with Coco on the top lane. The moment Bo Gio saw that the assassin was gone, her gaze sharpened. Coco, retreat. But it was too late. Usually, the assassin's big move was the big move when he was close to you. Coco's HP wasn't full, and with that attack, his HP fell to a critical level. The fans couldn't help but scream. But even so, it couldn't change the ending. With a loud thud, Coco fell heavily to the ground. The other Supreme Alliance teammate wanted to turn back. However, there was still a mage in front of him. With such a powerful spell, he could only dodge and run. Some younger fans couldn't accept Coco's death. How could this be? How did my Coco die just like that? In the beginning, the regret that came from liking him was nothing. Han Susu seized the opportunity and sighed. Isn't it because the main damage output of the team is protecting Spade Z at the bottom lane? Sigh, this kind of competition is really disappointing. This sentence successfully made some of Coco's fans hate Spade Z. Why didn't you save my Coco? What's the meaning of using all the attack power to protect Spade Z? Are you just going to watch your teammate die? At the same time, doubts were raised. Coco switched on his mic. I'm sorry, Vice Captain. I was careless. You told me to pay attention to the assassin and told me to retreat. I was too late. Chapter 643. After all, it wasn't a problem between teammates. How could he not die in a game? Unless he was as perverted as Almighty Qin. Coco didn't think much of it. After reviving, he set off in high spirits. However, Han Susu didn't give up, adding, "How cold?" Coco apologized to him, but why did he say that? He seems rather nice to Shui Yaoyao. The new member is protecting the new member. The fans started to resent Coco's death. A fat woman isn't as important as our Coco. I don't know what Spade Z is thinking. Maybe there's something going on between them. Heh, Spade Z better correct his attitude, otherwise, we won't do it if we lose the competition. Some fans were curious. Their idol had already explained the situation clearly. Why would he continue to listen to others' instigation and misinterpret their meaning? Every commander in a game knew that on the battlefield, it was important to be concise and have more plans. In reality, the more they played, the more Bo Gio understood the burden the Almighty had as a captain. She only played in the wilderness and rarely cooperated with anyone. When playing in the wilderness, she just had to think of her own strategy. There wasn't a need to think so much. Even when she had commanded before, she had used attacking characters. This team control was a true test of the team's cohesiveness. Especially when everyone was in the team. Tank, go forward, Yaoyao and Coco, run a little, one behind me, the other on the left to watch the ambush. Lin Feng, once we start, go invisible and attack the sorcerer at the back. All right. During a team battle, it was important to attack first and then attack. Killing the back was a common practice for assassins, but it depended on technique as well. But this was the camp that stood out. Coco's fans only looked at the surface. What I want to say is it interesting to have everyone surround him. Han Susu added immediately, He's just a vice captain. If he's so capable he can fight at the front, what's the point of being stuck in the middle? Is Spade Z afraid of death? He wants his teammates to charge forward. This was a skillful way of saying it because if one Supreme Alliance member died, Han Susu could say that he died in Spade Z's place. The team members wearing headphones couldn't hear a single word of what was said on the field. On the screen, the young man's gaze was calm and composed. His hands were already in position on the keyboard. With a single fight, he crouched down on the opponent's archer. With Coco's support, the opponent lost half of his HP and was stunned on the spot. Of course, in a team battle, they wouldn't die so easily. The enemy was definitely going to counterattack. However, the opponent's tank realized that he was in trouble after crouching down with a big move. It was indeed terrible, because at this moment, Spade Z took a step forward and froze the shooter. At the same time, the rain came. There were a total of 3 people in the formation, an archer, a support, and a tank. This pitter-patter rain could cause everyone in the center of the magic circle to lose HP and slow down. Sadly, the enemy didn't have any more big moves to break her formation. The tank had used his big move, and the archer couldn't use it in time. Only the opponent's sorcerer could interrupt Spade Z's big move. The sorcerer used his big move, sweeping across like a fireball. It was a pity Supreme Alliance still had a tank. He moved forward firmly, buying time for his teammates and allowing Lin Feng to appear and kill them. The opponent's sorcerer lost half his HP. Moreover, a sorcerer without his big move was most afraid of an assassin's close combat. Chapter 644. Team Wipe. When these 2 words appeared, the live audience was practically boiling with excitement. Without any obstacles, Supreme Alliance was like a whirlwind of offense. Everyone was in the middle lane. It was easy for 5 people to destroy the defense tower, even though Supreme Alliance's tank was almost out of HP. But don't forget, Bo Jio had healing abilities. The effect of heal was to restore the HP of the player and the party members around them. All 5 of them were healing at the same time, and it would take time for the other party to resurrect. This amount of time was enough for Supreme Alliance to take down the opponent's city. When the pieces of the city fell, the sky was filled with silver sparks, showing Supreme Alliance's absolute victory. Bo Jio was the first to remove her earpiece, her silver hair fluttering. It was such a cool action that was captured by the camera. Another burst of uncontrollable screams rang out. Even the shoutcaster was excited. Replay. Field control, please give me a replay. It was a beautiful team battle, wasn't it? Yes, the sorcerer's calculations are good. I never expected Spade Z to be so good as a sorcerer. With a rain spell, the opponent couldn't retaliate at all. So you think Spade Z is the MVP of this match? Definitely. There's no doubt that such an outstanding team control player will be the MVP. This is the first time I agree with your point of view. Alright, friends in the audience, the replay is here. Let's watch the most exciting scene in slow motion. It was common knowledge in team battles to use the tank to attack the front and the assassin to kill the back. However, when everyone looked again, they would notice Spade Z's movement. He moved slightly to the left, stopped the freeze, and then released his rain spell. This move was the key to winning the team battle, and it had to be said that his control was beautiful. This kind of playstyle is enough for him to compete with those who play Sorcerer all year round. Spade Z is definitely worthy of being the vice-captain of Supreme Alliance. There was nothing more convincing and exciting than a post-match analysis. When the youngster took off his headphones, Lin Feng pounced forward, wrapping his arms around her neck. He rammed his fist into her silver hair. "You're good, you're handsome. Especially when you cooperate with me, you're even more handsome." Coco also pressed forward with the brightest smile on his face. "Vice Captain, we won." It wasn't just the players in the arena, even Yun Hu and Yin Wuyao joined in. The youngster was at the bottom, her forehead pressed against the computer, one hand protecting the cat. "Hey, that's enough, my hairstyle. Don't worry, Your Highness Jio, you're still handsome." Shui Yaoyao smiled. Even though they weren't there, The audience could feel the different feelings between Supreme Alliance and the Alliance. Coco's fans, who were originally dissatisfied, couldn't say anything after seeing this scene. Since their Coco liked Spade Z so much, it wouldn't be good for them to say anything. It was a scene of jubilation. This was not what Han Susu wanted to see. She stood there with her hands clenched and her eyes darkened. Chapter 645. That tone and the surrounding gazes caused Han Susu, who had never been mocked before, to turn red and green. After all, it was a slap to her face. Han Susu couldn't take it anymore, grabbing her bag and fleeing the scene. The cheers of victory continued. The MVP of the competition, the youngster, carried a white cat, his handsome side profile perfectly captured on the screen. There was a cracking sound. Through the computer. Wu Zhen threw the mouse in her hand, her eyes cold to the extreme. It wasn't because of Supreme Alliance's victory. It was because of the cat in the youngster's arms. Wu Zhen had never expected to see Princess here. Others might not know who the white cat belonged to, but Wu Zhen was clear. That person had never allowed anyone near his cat, not even she had hugged Princess. But now, Princess was in the hands of that useless young Master Fu. Wu Zhen clenched her fists tighter and tighter, her expression darkening. Until there was a knock on the door. Wu Zhen switched off the screen, standing up. She was still at work, wearing her uniform. Director Huang came, holding some documents in his hands. Li Mengran is implicated in the forum, it's dangerous. We have to investigate the culprit as soon as possible. Li Mengran is the only one who has direct contact with the forum. Go ask her about the tone of the replies and if there were any leaks. Write it down and pass it to me. In the past, before Wu Zhen was transferred over, Director Huang would always address her as Miss Wu. But it was different now. Wu Zhen was a member of the crime squad, her work couldn't be sloppy. But it was obvious that Wu Zhen wasn't interested in such cases. She took the documents, asking, "Aren't you going to investigate Z's case?" "Brother Mo, where did he go? Did he go to investigate? If he can't handle it, I can help him." "Don't bother about what he does, just do your job well." Director Huang was like a weasel, keeping his mouth shut. He wouldn't divulge anything if he could. Wu Zhen felt a wave of annoyance when she heard his words. Wasn't he able to return to the crime squad because of her persuasion? But now this Director Huang... Wait a minute, Li Mengran, wasn't she the one who said she was gay? Okay, I'll drive over now and ask all the questions I need to ask. Wu Zhen laughed, but her gaze was sinister. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Li Mengran, who was resting at home, had just finished watching the youngster's live stream. If one thing can change a family, he had indeed done it. Mother Li's views were different from before. In the past, as long as Li Mengran wasn't doing her exercises, she would frown, regardless of the time. As long as he had some free time, he would let Li Mengran attend classes. Now, she didn't care what the child did. However, there was one thing that Mother Li noticed, and that was that her daughter seemed to really like that young man. Every time before she did the exercises, her daughter would look at her phone. The people on the school's intranet had posted another photo of the young man. After reading it, his daughter continued to write questions with a smile on her face. Mother Li had also expressed that as long as she found a partner, she would agree. Chapter 646. In that instant, Mother Li's heart ached. Our Mengran is great too. I know, but it's not the type His Highness Jiu likes. Li Mengran smiled faintly. I'll continue to like him, silently, not burdening him. If I'm outstanding enough in the future, I'll confess to him. Whether he accepts or rejects me, I'll be happy. Mom, do you know, as long as you like him, you'll be happy? How could Mother Li not know that? She had witnessed the changes in her daughter. Such a daughter really made her feel proud as a mother. At the same time, she reflected on herself. The best way to be a parent was to grow up with their child. Hence, when Wu Zhen, who was dressed in a police uniform, came knocking on their door, they were somewhat surprised. Wu Zhen still had a smile on her face, her words appropriate. Auntie, don't worry, it's just Mengran. I'm here to understand the situation and make a statement. The police won't reveal Mengran's identity. In reality, Mother Li was no longer the same as before. As long as she could protect her daughter, she didn't care if others found out. Since she was from the police, she naturally wouldn't reject her. Wu Zhen was smart. She didn't start off with official business. Instead, she moved on to other topics such as Mengran's current situation, her mood and studies. Anyone would be willing to listen to such words. After setting the foundation, Wu Zhen revealed her true motive. Mengran, are you willing to talk about your boyfriend? His Highness Jiu. Li Mengran hadn't expected her to ask about the youngster. Her first reaction was, that has nothing to do with him. Wu Zhen arched a brow. What is it? Li Mengran shook her head. Nothing. Wu Zhen was a police officer. She could immediately tell that Li Mengran was trying to hide something. She placed her pen down. Mengran, you should understand that it's better to make things clear so that we can solve the problem. Actually, there's something I've always wanted to ask. Since he's your boyfriend, why are you calling him His Highness Jiu? That doesn't seem normal. Li Mengran remained silent. Wu Zhen continued, also, he seemed to have known about you in advance. As your boyfriend, didn't he take any precautions? When we caught the teacher, he kept mumbling that it must be the little brat who harmed him and that he should have paid more attention. Who was the little brat referring to? Your boyfriend? This matter really has nothing to do with Highness Jiu. Li Mengran panicked. Don't make things difficult for His Highness Jiu. Back then, His Highness Jiu only became my boyfriend because he thought that at least those beasts would have some reservations. Wu Zhen looked at Li Mengran, her eyes narrowing. Is that true? It really is. Li Mengran shifted her gaze to the left. In order to catch up to that person, Wu Zhen had specially learned how to use micro-expressions during interrogations. Li Mengran was obviously hiding something. Because her gaze to the upper left had already betrayed her. However, Wu Zhen knew that it was useless to continue asking. It was obvious that Li Mengran was very protective of the gay. It was better not to ask any more, lest this person figured out her intentions. But there was one thing that Wu Zhen was almost certain of. Chapter 647. Moreover, it was related to this incident. After asking about the forum, Wu Zhen's mind wasn't on it. Once she was out of the Li family's house, she called Han Susu. The moment Han Susu picked up the call, she started complaining to Wu Zhen. Why are there so many people protecting such a gay? I feel disgusted just looking at him. I don't like him either. Wu Zhen lowered her voice. But don't worry, he'll be out of luck soon. Han Susu's eyes lit up. Sister Wu, did you think of a good idea? It's related to my work. It's not convenient for me to tell you now. Are there any problems on your side? Wu Zhen asked as she opened the car door. Han Susu chuckled lightly. What problems can there be? Some of his Spade Z fans still like me since I supported him from the start. He doesn't know how to be grateful, he'll regret it one day. Some people are indeed destroyed by arrogance. Wu Zhen flipped through the information in her hands. Han Susu was still furious. It's fine, we can make a fuss on the official Weibo. Anyway, the Spade Z fans I interacted with are feeling aggrieved. It's better to be careful, don't let anyone find out, Wu Zhen instructed. Han Susu said, don't worry, there are still my friends there. They are all on my side. In that case, I'll tell you what I have on my side. If possible, I might be able to capture the gay and keep him there for a few days. Wu Zhen smiled. Han Susu was delighted. If that's the case, that would be great. That way, everyone would be able to see what kind of person Spade Z was. But at this moment, Supreme Alliance's second match was about to begin. Bo Jiu didn't have time to think about anything else. Once again, she deployed the formation and commanded the battle calmly in the face of danger. That day, all the Spade Z fans could only see the youngster, wearing a black headset, giving out simple orders, perfect maneuvering and positioning, playing at the highest level of a sorcerer. After the second match, it was already 6 p.m. There was an interview with an esports star. Bo Jio was the one Supreme Alliance had chosen. Without a choice, the youngster unzipped her uniform and pointed to her teammates. Wait for me to come back before we go for skewers. Unfortunately, no one listened to Jio in this regard. Hearing that they were going to eat, Supreme Alliance revealed their true nature. They only had meat in their eyes and didn't care about their little vice captain. Lin Feng said straightforwardly, "Don't worry, we'll wait for you at the skewers." In other words, they would definitely go first. So when the microphone was passed to the youth, the young man was still thinking about crispy chicken bones, lamb skewers, fish tofu, baked beans, and so on. In the end, when the beautiful host asked, "Who is your favorite esports player?" the youngster said decisively, "Let's eat skewers." Excuse me? Was there any team with a player named Bao Kebab in an esports competition? Not only the beautiful host, but even the cameraman was dumbfounded. Cough. Feng Yi coughed heavily. The young man, who was holding the cat in one hand, came back from his thoughts and smiled faintly. "Is there a problem?" "You're the one with the problem now." Chapter 648. Was that a person's name? Fox Feng glanced at her. The beautiful host asked again, "Do you have any esports players you admire?" "Of course." Bo Jio smiled. "Chi Nemo, I admire not only his looks but also his playing style." The beautiful host laughed. "Aren't you just expressing your admiration for Almighty Qin?" Bo Jio smiled but didn't reply. The beautiful host continued to ask, "Throughout the match today, everyone noticed that you played a character that you don't usually play, but it was surprisingly perfect. I think everyone is very curious about when you became a mage. After all, you've always played a more aggressive character before." "The day before yesterday." The two words, youngster. The beautiful host paused. "Can I trouble you to repeat, when did you train?" "The day before yesterday," the youngster replied, not forgetting to suppress Princess in his arms. The beautiful host was slightly dazed. "You managed to train a character so well in 2 days?" Bo Jio didn't mention that she had only played for 3 hours and managed to master it after 5 rounds. The beautiful host sighed. "As expected of the FC King of Zone C. I believe the fans are just like me, they will look forward to your competition in the future." That was indeed the case. It was a national competition. Almost all the girls who liked to play games were infatuated with the youngster. Their peripheral products were sold out. Some dealers even scratched their heads. I've never seen a gamer more popular than a celebrity. In one night, almost the entire Jiang city saw the interview with the youngster. In the end, the silver-haired youngster stuffed one hand into his trouser pocket, the other carelessly hugging the white cat gently. He looked handsome as he looked into the camera, making people's hearts race. But under all the glamour, there was bound to be something that others didn't know. 11 p.m. The youngster finally had a proper meal. Before he finished, he fell asleep on the dining table in the living room. The princess had jumped on the table and sniffed around, trying to claw at the stupid human who was always threatening her. But when he saw the youngster's sleeping profile, he retracted his claws and started to walk proudly. "On account of the fact that you fed me delicious food, this king will forgive you." The princess stomped for a while, and when she was done, she wrapped herself up into a fluffy round ball and leaned against the side of the young man's face. A man and a cat, just enough to keep each other warm. At this moment, on the other side of the earth, on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, the sunlight was very gentle. It passed through the white curtains and shone on that handsome and abstinent face. "Qin, do you feel anything here?" The doctor spoke in authentic English. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. His fingers pressed on the man's wrist, and his eyes observed the patient's reaction. A very pleasant word, no. "I understand." The doctor wrote a few sentences in English on his notebook, then gave some instructions before leaving with his things. Chi Nemo was the only one left in the ward. Dressed in a pure white hospital gown, he looked like he had walked out of a comic, a white devil, a typical military commander. "Young master, do you want to take a look at the situation?" Adjutant Zhang was standing beside him. He knew very well what the young master was concerned about. Unexpectedly, Qin Mo rejected her. No need, I can't control myself. Chapter 649. It was nighttime. Jiang City's mansion. Feng Shang watched as his brother placed his phone down, stuttering, "Why was it Captain Qin?" Feng Yi's eyes dimmed. It's not normal for someone to cause trouble in the arena today. I'll get someone to investigate. Feng Shang grunted heavily. Why you have to investigate? Bully my idol? No, don't let me know what they are called in-game. I know, I'll go and bully them every day. These people don't play games. Feng Yi glanced at his bunny brother. More and more people will like you in the future. Some might not like you because of your gaming skills, but because of your faces. Some might even like you because your existence can give them a topic to talk about. There are many such things, you have to get used to it. Feng Shang clenched his fists. And not used to it. Feng Yi laughed like a fox. That's true, you don't have to get used to it. You just have to play the game well, I'll handle the rest. He wasn't sure what his motive was. But it was obvious that there were a few people who were incited to the point where they couldn't tell right from wrong. Or perhaps, after today's incident, they vaguely understood what was going on. But they still chose to continue being used by others, and they would still feel sympathetic towards each other. They felt wronged after hurting others. There were many of such people in real life. Usually, it wouldn't change. Feng Yi didn't care about that, he just had to find the mastermind. Even as a manager, he couldn't stand to watch being splashed with coke. But after the match, the youngster said in a low voice while wearing a mask, "Don't tell Brother Mo about what happened today." Feng Yi knew very well what all this forbearance was for. For that person to focus on his hand injury, for Supreme Alliance's victory, for his teammates. If it wasn't for these most important things, the youngster would probably have dealt with it in a different way. Sometimes, when Feng Yi looked at the youngster, it was as though he was looking at the past Qin Mo. That person had walked step by step in the same manner. Doubt, ridicule, incitement, attacks, all of them had ulterior motives. It was because of these experiences that the most valuable esports player was born. Feng Yi lowered his lids, picking up another call. Yes, I want to know who brought the fan in, there should be records. These things were not easy to investigate. Because there were too many people entering the venue. It would take a lot of time and energy to find out the truth. At this moment, it was up to the true Spade fans to unite. Feng Yi decided to meet Sister Turtle. Feng Yi considered himself so handsome that he had no friends. However, when he sat down in front of the woman, he realized that the woman in front of him did not seem to have weakened in the slightest. Moreover, that face was very beautiful. For the first time, Feng Yi felt that he didn't need to speak so clearly when talking to someone. Because as soon as he said it, the other party could almost understand everything. President Feng, don't worry. We'll use the best way to protect our young man. We'll fully cooperate with the authorities. Feng Yi paused. I've prepared a lot of questions. Moreover, such a strict selection method was bound to attract some disgust. Chapter 650. Ever since that day, all the Spade fans seemed to have an indescribable tacit understanding. Cooperating with the officials, even those who weren't qualified to go to the stadium would cheer for Spade Z online. Because they believe that protection is mutual. Moreover, they did not want to see a second Coke splash incident. So when you really like a person, you will really feel sorry for what happened to him. The next day, when Bo Jio found out about the incident, she hugged the white cat and recorded a message on her official Weibo. Come, princess, say good morning to everyone. Meow. You stupid human, if you have the guts, let me go and fight one-on-one. The young man's unique voice, coupled with the bursts of meowing, made people feel that he was full of life. Oh, my big Spade is even more handsome now. I'm going to record this and use it to wake myself up every day. It's so warm. What should I do? Am I the only one who feels like I'm about to explode from the princess's voice? Actually, I don't care about that. What I care about is why my big spade is suddenly carrying a cat to the competition and the cat is always around. This is a good question. Qin Fan can't help but want to say something. That should be our Almighty's cat. Cover your face. My Almighty has even let little Spade take care of his cat. I'm really not thinking about it. I just want to ask, do you even have the keys to the Qin family? When she saw the last message, she glanced towards her table instinctively. There was indeed a key on it. But it wasn't from the Qin family, it was from the Almighty's place where he lived. There was a lot of cat food there. The Almighty had said that if it wasn't enough, she could feed him. I feel like I've been stuffed with another mouthful of dog food. The gay is trying to make his presence felt again. I really don't understand why some idiots like him. Spade Z, it's time for you to face your own problems. Don't you think about why you were splashed? There were even some of your fans. Do you think a few fans aren't important? I'm here purely because I can't stand the current entry system. It's so strict. How narcissistic. Do you think anyone would want to see you? From the looks of it, the other party wasn't going to be done yet. Feng Yi was also looking at the official Weibo. He narrowed his eyes and sped up the search process. Bo Jiao was already dressed in Supreme Alliance's uniform. Honor always goes hand in hand with vilification. What we want is to be worthy of the people we need to be worthy of. For 3 whole days, Supreme Alliance was like a dark horse that charged out of a tight encirclement, killing enemies along the way and reaping great rewards. Complete victory. The 4th day. Team battle. Supreme Alliance won't win so easily this time. The shoutcaster looked at the list, giving his analysis. Another commentator asked, "What do you mean?" Chapter 651. That was indeed the case. Everyone knew that the National League would become more and more difficult as the competition progressed, because the opponents they encountered would constantly become stronger. Chen Yiguang had been using a sorcerer since the very beginning. Many people couldn't take down Galaxy because of his ace sorcerer. It was said that his positioning, skills, and control over time were extremely sensitive. Apologies. Lin Feng came down from the 2v2, his fingers clenched tightly. Galaxy was indeed strong. So strong that he couldn't keep up. I should be the one apologizing. Coco stood there, his head hanging low. If I hadn't died so quickly, I wouldn't have lost. His captain had told him a long time ago that he needed to improve. But before he could improve to a certain level, the National League had started. Coco started to seriously consider if he should do fewer live streams in the future so that he could have more time to train his hand speed. But regardless of the reason, it couldn't be used as an excuse for his poor performance. With that, Bo Jiao stood up, smiling faintly as she tugged at the black wrist guard on her right hand. She tilted her head and smiled. "It's fine, we'll help you win it back." She was referring to us. She wasn't referring to herself. The 5 of them stood in a line, giving off an indescribable sense of handsomeness when they walked onto the stage. It was an aura that wouldn't get tired of even after watching it many times. The shoutcasters were still shaking their heads, not having high hopes for the match. Spade Z's sorcerer won't be able to control Chen Yiguang. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a voice suddenly rang out. A sound effect came from the screen. "Spade Z, assassin." In that instant, the shoutcasters were confused. Wait a minute, shouldn't Spade Z be a sorcerer? What was going on with the assassin? A commotion broke out over at Galaxy. It seemed like the situation was out of their expectations. True Spade fans found it normal. My big Spade is an assassin, it's perfect for him. The shoutcasters were in a daze. What's wrong? Just that one sentence was enough to send a shock through everyone. That's right. How could they forget that the newcomer king of Zone C was best at using assassins? Even now, the video of Spade Z using assassins to kill 5 players was still being spread like wildfire. That was why he had no intention of playing as a mage in the first place. The youngster did not look around. Instead, he gestured to his teammates and put on the headphones with his right hand. The shoutcaster only snapped out of his daze when he heard the sound of entering the game. Anyone who used the assassin class would know that they should first kill monsters to level up, then kill people. Furthermore, using an assassin to kill someone required a certain level of skill. Chen Yiguang knew Spade Z wasn't easy to deal with. He controlled the character with his fingers, his voice low. Be careful of Spade Z's ambush. Don't worry, Captain. We'll only defend and not attack. We'll wait for you to take control later. However, that was what he said, but when it came to the real fight, you can't just defend and not attack. One of the members of the space troopers defended the tower very well. He was facing two enemies at once, but neither of them attacked him. His HP was running low, so he wanted to return to the city while he was safe under the tower. But that person forgot one thing. Chapter 652. On the screen, everyone could clearly see the youngster's beautiful finger technique. It was so fast that they couldn't even see it clearly. The assassin with the name Spade Z had already rushed under the opponent's tower. With a big move, he killed someone and then jumped over the wall. The music started playing. A perfect tower kill. A stunning first kill. Instantly, the crowd was in an uproar. The player who had returned to the city hadn't expected Spade Z to suddenly appear. How insane was his hand speed to reach such a level? But that wasn't the end. The figure didn't return to the city. Instead, after jumping out, he went straight for the assassin in the jungle. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Along with the exciting music, two huge words appeared on the screen. Double kill. Amazing! When the commentator said these two words, he slammed the table. His excitement was no less than that of the live audience. Everyone was requesting for the replay to be slowed down. Because when Spade Z killed the first player, his speed was too fast. Even the full-view audience couldn't figure out when the figure had started to sweep past the jungle and head for the tower. The scene made everyone's blood boil. Spade Z playing as an assassin really makes people want to become his fan. These were the shoutcaster's words. It wasn't because of anything else but the youngster's technique and maneuvers. There wasn't a single pause when he killed someone. There was only one word that could describe it. It was awesome. At this moment, Chen Yiguang started to feel more confident. He knew clearly that they wouldn't be able to win this team battle. As soon as the match started, Spade Z had already completed the first kill. It was obvious that the opponent didn't intend to take down the tower this time, choosing to sweep the entire way. Chen Yiguang wasn't sure if it was a coincidence or the youngster's plan. If it was the latter, Spade Z was terrifying. For a sorcerer, starting a battle in the jungle was his weakness. His usual calculations had to be readjusted. There were too many bushes in the jungle. It was easy to control one person, but difficult to control many. Chen Yiguang had already used his big move twice. Supreme Alliance did have casualties, but if the opponent died, they would lose 4 on their side. When he ran from the jungle to the tower, he didn't dare to lose too much HP. Because it was very likely that Spade Z would cross the tower and kill him. He had never experienced such a feeling before. The current Supreme Alliance, no, it should be Spade Z, was so strong that he couldn't handle him. Without Qin Mo, they would be able to win the match. But now, Chen Yiguang realized something. After Qin Mo left, Spade Z came. The youngster with the title of Rookie King wasn't any worse than Qin Mo. Just thinking about it, Chen Yiguang's fingers were trembling. Without Qin Mo around, Supreme Alliance was already so powerful. If Qin Mo came back, how strong would Supreme Alliance be? With such a question, StarCraft lost the match. Just as the shoutcaster had said, Spade Qin's plan wasn't to attack the city, but to kill everyone. Supreme Alliance won. She won so much that everyone wanted to shout, "Beautiful!" On the other hand, the atmosphere in the Interstellar Alliance was a little gloomy. In order to prepare for the National League, every team had exhausted all of their efforts. No one wanted to lose. Everyone hoped that they could fight one more round. Even if it was just one more battle, it would be fine. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, and as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.